Hello, Globebusters. Yes, of course they're serious. You do? You have? No kidding. Uh-huh. Oh, they'll cure your globitis this week. Thank you. We got one!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Globebusters.
What are you supposed to be, some kind of a cosmonaut?
No, we're exterminators.
And now, here's your host.
And welcome everybody to Globebusters, the Flat Explosion. I am your host, Bob Xanadude60, and we are back for another Wednesday evening show for you, at least in some parts of the world. But we're back and got a lot of interesting little news tidbits to cover tonight. And we also are going to be introducing a brand new Globebuster to the team. He is somebody that he's been around the community for a couple of years that I remember, at least 2 or 3 at least, if not longer. And he has done several experiments, and he really has a very interesting way of looking at things that I think a lot of people are able to relate to very well. And that was one of the biggest things that I really liked about this particular person. And so I thought, gee, wouldn't it be cool if we get him to come onto the Globebusters team and kind of help us get our message out. So I talked to him, and sure enough, he agreed, and that's fantastic. So our newest Globebuster, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Mitchell from Australia. How you doing today, Mitchell?
Hey, Bob, I'm doing great. Hey, everyone. Great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. Very excited.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're here. And has it been 3 years? Is that right? Or did I get that incorrect? That you are 3 or 4 years. How long have you been in this?
Yeah, fair while. Publicly, yeah, probably about 3 years, I guess. I first started out on the Flat Earth podcast. Don't need to talk about that, but after that, I kind of attempted that Talk the Line experiment, which I want to try to do in the future. Like that, it's totally not off the table. I've still got all the materials for it for those playing at home. The Talk the Line experiment, but yeah, currently I'm doing Flat Earth School, which is on my YouTube channel, Mitchell from Australia. Daily live streams around beautiful locations around my local area, beaches, mountains, waterfalls, and that's where you can catch me at the moment.
All right, that sounds beautiful. Yeah, I remember that. The what was it called? Talk the Line? What was it called?
Yeah, Talk the Line.
Talk the Line.
Where I was running out a string, like a fishing line, very high tensile fishing line, across a lake. I was intending to pull it tight.
Right, and you had some problems with it because it didn't seem to meet the manufacturer's specifications of pull strength on it, right? It was breaking way too easy, or too soon, I think.
Yeah, it was rated to 50 pounds, and I was only getting 30 pounds out of it, and usually the rating is far under what it can actually hold. So I sent it back to the manufacturer. They put it on their machine, which is a bit different to what I was using to try and test it. They got about 70 pounds out of it. They sent it back to me. I tried it again, still only about 30, 40 pounds, and I needed that 50 pounds strength to pull it tight over the 3 miles or 2.5 miles, whatever it was, because I was intending to do a physical measurement of whatever the water was over that lake. So if it pulled tight and it went under the water, we would physically measure a curve, if there was a curve present. And if we pulled it tight and it didn't go under the water, it stayed above the water on both sides, then that would be a physical measurement of the flat Earth that we live on, and that's where I attended. But I didn't even get it out to the water. Tried to test it. I've still got the string. I've still got the materials. I think it was my method of testing that sent me astray. But I do intend to revisit it, because I think it would be, if anything, just a great observation of
Yeah, I agree.
Flat Earth.
I agree. Because I thought that would be a really fantastic test. By the way, John Morgile, your video is on. I don't think if you realize that, but your video is on Skype. So you might want to kill it. Whoops. We don't usually, we're kind of shy around here. We don't normally turn our video on or anything like that. But I know you do your shows and, pretty much a full video presentation. And, we may do that eventually, but I just like having other things going on in the background that people can check out, whether it be memes or anything like that. So it's just kind of a little different approach. And I've done it this way for 6 years. So it's kind of hard to change.
Is that better? Oh, and then it just came back
No,
on.
you're
It's
still-
got a mind of its own, I'm telling you.
Yeah, you're still there. It went off. I'm sitting there looking at it, and it's like I'm getting this picture of John staring down at his phone. It's like, what is that? Nope, it's back on again, John.
What a pain.
That's crazy. Now it's off. Okay, I'll let you know if it goes back on. Anyway, all right.
Okay.
So yeah, Mitchell, I think that would be a very worthwhile test. Now, was the problem that, did they have anything that was like a higher test line than that? But if they did, I would imagine it was probably a lot more expensive. Was that the problem?
No, so I looked through, it was Spectra, the brand is Spectra, and it is very high tensile. It goes up to over hundreds of pounds of tensile. But the problem is when you put it into the calculations of how much it will float up or how much it will sag. I went through every single one of their products, and the 50-pound strength line came across as the best ratio of weight to strength. And so there would be the least amount of sag, the least amount of buoyancy, if you want to call it, if it did not go under the water, but the highest tensile strength of that ratio. So that's why it was chosen. And it wasn't a cheap line. I think it was about $1,000 Australian to get that 3 miles of line. So I've got it all. I can still attempt to do it. It's just I haven't had the time to revisit it.
I know. And the crazy thing about it is we know full well how it's going to turn out, I mean, so it's like, what are we doing this? Sometimes you just ask yourself, it's like, why are we doing this? The Globers are going to deny anything regardless of what you do. But we know that it's going to show no curvature. But, I guess you just got to keep, hitting it and keep going after all these different evidences. And honestly, it's not the trolls that we're trying to convince. It's the people that are coming to this that have an honest desire to, find out the truth and are willing to set their ego aside, set their snap judgments of flat earthers aside, and their, instant inkling, I guess, to try and, slam us and, all that stuff. And it's just, those are the kind of people that we're trying to get to. And I think that we've really been successful in doing that. And I think that, your particular methodology is going to be really effective in helping us do that. So that's pretty cool. So I am playing your number one flat earth proof. Now, I did play this in its entirety on the Sunday show. I've just got it on the CC right now, but we'll be talking about that here in a minute. So let me go ahead and introduce the rest of the panel, and then we will get on with the show. All right. So next up we have Mr. and his audio, his video is off too. John TheMorgile. How you doing today, John? Whoops. There you are.
I'm telling you, I have such a hard time with the mute button on this thing, but I'm doing very well, Bob. Thank you for asking. Hope you guys are doing well today too.
Awesome.
A little hot today though, man. I'll tell you, the heat index was like 105 or something, like just unbearable.
Wow, that is bad. And you're in Salina? Is that right?
Yeah, Kansas.
Salina, yeah, Kansas. Wow. It's funny because Jeran used to live in Salinas, but it was California. So I kind of got the two mixed up because somebody was saying, well, doesn't John live around here somewhere? And I said Salinas, and he's like, there isn't a Salinas, Kansas, but whatever. He got the idea, right?
Yeah. Then I'll tell you what, they're all about the same. So you basically got cornfields and more cornfields and then some more cornfields.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely get that. I spent a lot of time going across Iowa and Nebraska and Missouri building microwave sites. And so we would go out on the road for like a year, 2 years at a time. And I actually really loved that job because I was in my early 20s when I did it. And it was just a blast to, be able to travel everywhere and meet so many people and everything. But yeah, I definitely remember Iowa and Kansas, and it's like not a whole lot to do there, but the people were pretty cool regardless. So we made do.
Well, one thing that I found it's been sort of a culture shock for me, going from, the South, on the East side, is the customer service sort of skills or environment here in Kansas is not exactly what I'm used to. So just make a long story short, in Kansas, the customer is always wrong.
Okay.
Seriously, man. I mean, and it's not just like one or two times where I've been like, I would say mistreated by customer service representatives, but just like all over the place. Kansas, I guess, is famous for their non-hospitality. I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny. And the one thing that we discovered too, and it used to be that you would think the Midwest places were really hospitable, but what we were amazed at, people talk about Southern hospitality. And when we were coming down here and we went through like Tennessee and, all the Southern states, I mean, it's like the customer service down here, people actually give a crap, which is really refreshing. So, that's one thing that I was really surprised at. And in Tennessee, it was just amazing. I've never seen anything quite like Tennessee is, their attitude and how everybody was trying to help on everything. And it was just, incredible. So you just never know where you're going to find it. So, all right.
Man. Yeah. I find myself arguing with the CSRs all the time, and I'm not very argumentative, but sometimes it's just unavoidable.
Yeah, I know. Yep. Well, that's because, customer service representatives, it's all about the profit and they don't want to provide any service anymore, which, to me is a pain, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's move on to our next Globebuster. We have Mr. Zachary Zabala, or Good Times for All, if you prefer. How you doing today, Zach?
Hey, Bob. Hey, everybody. Not too bad. Can't complain. Yeah. Warm here too, John. Only 90, 92, something like that. But yeah, it's weird down here in the South. It's going to take some time getting used to it being this hot for this long of a period of time. I'm just used to, hitting it maybe for like a week up in the 90s, a week or two, maybe hit 100. But yeah, it's been like a couple months now of 90-degree days.
Yeah, John should be pretty familiar with it. You lived in Greenville, didn't you, John?
I did. Yeah, Greenville, Spartanburg, those areas, they're kind of like right next to each other, or more or less.
Yeah.
And for quite a while. I lived in Florida too for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Florida can definitely be humid too, but yeah, when you come from the Midwest, it's quite a shock when you come down here. So that's the way it is. All right. And last but not least, we have Mr. John Savage with us this afternoon. And how are you doing today, John?
Oh, I'm doing brilliantly, Bob. Thanks very much for having me back on. Hi, Mitchell. Welcome aboard. John, Zack, and everyone watching. If you don't mind, Bob, I've got a quick plug I wouldn't mind putting out there.
Sure. Oh, I think I know what it is too. And let me see if I can find it. Do you have the website by any chance to bring that up?
I do, yeah. Hold on. Let me just copy that and bung it in chat.
Okay.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, it's a conference coming up in Britain.
Yep.
Which is why it's dear to my heart, because we don't get many over here. But I'm glad to see that Martin Leaker has put together a Flat Earth British conference, that is kicking off on the 10th of September.
Yep.
And yeah, it looks really cool. I got an email from Dave Murphy earlier last week, I think it was. Sorry, Dave, I've been busy as hell over here, but I won't bore you with that. But I will get back to you. So we've got the speakers, Martin Leaker, Dave Murphy, Mark Devlin is doing a DJ set there, so that would be cool. Paul Cook, Jadeth, and then we got Campbell Purvis, autodidactic, and Douglas, underrated actual physicist. They're making they're coming in via Skype or something, I think.
UAP's coming in. I was going to say, wow, that's cool, because UAP, he's in the US. So let's see what this looks like. That's 3 minutes.
So any chance you'll be breaking out the ginger wig there, Savage? Making an appearance?
I'm housebound by choice.
There you go.
Would be the way I would say it. But no, I'm not a big fan of these sort of things, but I'm more than happy to promote them. It's in Birmingham. So 10th of September, and I think the tickets are 25 quid. And the website is libertyliving.com. I'll stick a link in the chat.
Okay, and I'll put it in the show notes afterwards also. Let's go ahead and play their little 3-minute video here. I assume that's what it is, a little promo video for it. So let's go ahead and do that, because Martin is a good friend, and he's awesome, and so is UAP. So I definitely support anything that they're in, because they are great guys. So let's take a look at this.
Welcome to Flat a Day. Flat thumbs, double, triple, flat thumbs to infinity twice. Forever and ever.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be epic. Hopefully just the first of many to come.
Yeah, let's hope they don't lock us down before September. Bob, are you muted or something?
Yes, I am. God, I can't believe that. Sorry about that. I muted myself. All right. So, yeah, I think that is incredible. That's going to be a lot of fun. I wish I could attend, but unfortunately, I'm not going to go anywhere that requires me to alter my body chemistry. So we'll have to kind of sit this one out. But yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Mitchell, did you ever attend any of the conferences that they had in Australia? I think there were like 2 or 3 years ago, and they had one in New Zealand also.
No, I never got to go to a conference. No, unfortunately. Would have been pretty cool. We definitely need to organise one here. There's a good following here in Australia. It's just that kind of people need to put something together. I suppose I should probably do something like that, but just not at the moment anyway.
Wow, yeah, there really are a lot of flat earthers in Australia. We get tons of people from there, and even my channel analytics show quite a few people from Australia are following flat Earth. So yeah, there, the UK, well, pretty much all over the world. Some places more than others, but in some places of the world, believe it or not, guys, the world being flat is normal to them. And that may be a big surprise for a lot of people, but there are still a whole lot of cultures out around the world that very much believe that and will never buy into this heliocentric nonsense, right?
I've heard that. I've heard Phuket World talking about Thailand, saying that it's just well known over there. And I've heard South American countries, I'm not going to guess which one, but they're teaching flat Earth. They have been teaching flat Earth forever, and still do. So yeah.
But that's why they keep us so decompartmentalized, and they don't allow. We don't see anything coming out of South America up here in North America. We get everything that happens in Europe, Western Europe. I think it has to do with the Western society, kind of the Europe. Moving over here, we all still kind of keep in contact, and we get to hear the news about each other, but we don't hear anything about what's going on in South America ever. I mean, there's civil war going on in Venezuela now for how many years? And I've never seen it on the United States news. Maybe once mentioned in an article. We just don't hear about it.
And is the woman that Dave Weiss interviewed, the 102-year-old that remembers being taught flat Earth, is she, dare I say it, still alive?
I think so. Yeah, I think she still is. She's she lives at a retirement home in God, where Dave is. Washington. Why am I having a brain cramp? Virginia. No. Where is Dave? Connecticut. Jeez, brain cramp. Can't believe it. Yeah, that's where Dave is. So yeah, she's amazing. I was amazed. Like, I hope I make it to 102. Well, and then a part of me says, I hope I don't make it till I'm 102 either, man. This place it's getting too crazy as it is,
But there you go. There are people still alive in America that remember being taught flat Earth as standard.
Yeah.
I have a lady that I worked with, and her dad had passed away, over a decade ago. And I had brought up flat Earth to her, back in 2015. And right away, I saw it like glint in her eye. Her father had told her whole life that the Earth was flat and NASA was lying and the Bible was correct. And she's like, everybody thought he was crazy and insane and just thought he was a religious fanatic. She's like, now, but when you say it and, show it to me the way you do, she almost started crying. She's like, my father wasn't insane. He wasn't crazy. He was just a wise man that knew, he spoke his truth.
Brilliant. And I've told the story a number of times of a friend around here who spoke to his brother-in-law, who was really high up in telecommunications in the British government. And he mentioned it to him because I was telling him all about it. And he didn't even hesitate. He said, yeah, it's flat. and that's the first time he's ever spoken about it. And yeah, totally. There are people high up that know this, and the really high up are laughing at anyone who thinks this is a spinning ball in the vacuum of space.
Yeah. Well, and besides the people that have been taught that culturally, I mean, there's always been people that have been different, that walk around among us, and usually they're the ones that most people made fun of when they were kids, and it's because they just operated differently. I know I was one of those people. I didn't really get a lot of people making fun of me, per se, because I was always really smart and everything, but I definitely just didn't connect that well to kids my age, back when I was a kid. So I was one of those people that I could never understand why the world was the way that it was, why we had so many wars. And, it just seemed like, with all the millions and billions of dollars that were being spent to kill other people, they could just spend it to fix the problem. But of course, I was very naive, not understanding what the bigger picture was. And, that's kind of where, when you're looking at it that way and you're trying to figure it out, then all of a sudden you've launched that rocket of desire, right? That rocket of, I want to know what's happening in the world. And, if you truly are seeking, you will find. And sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for, because, look what we all found, right? And it's like, sometimes I wonder, it's like, wow, this, I could have, I could have gone probably without knowing that the world is as screwed up as it is. But I suppose the opportunity that it affords us is it gives us an opportunity to try and make changes in it, right? So.
Yeah, totally. And I think that we all think that sort of way, that we grew up thinking we're different from almost everyone else around. And it just goes to show. And I think a lot, I've heard so many people, me included, that said their geography teacher was a flat earther and used to get the piss ripped out of him at school. But yeah, he was a brazen flat earther. And I think lots of other people have come across that as well. Mitchell, have you ever come across, sort of ancient flat earth in your country?
No, I've been meaning to talk to some Aboriginal people, because they're one of the oldest cultures here on Earth, apparently. And before Westerners came a little over 200 years ago, that's all they wouldn't have known. They wouldn't have been told. They wouldn't have observed anything other than their flat Earth around them. So it'd be really interesting to talk to people of that culture. But other than that, no, there is not much other than the people you see in the chat here, the people that comment on my videos. Other than that, I don't know personally of any flat earthers here in Australia. I've never met a flat earther in person, which is a bit sad. So that kind of answers that question.
We can hook you up with a couple of people. We've
Well,
got we've got Rob.
Yeah, I can honestly say all the Australians that I know and have spoken to are flat earthers. It's only a few, but yeah, everybody I know from Australia is a flat earther. So.
Yeah, well,
and given
by that standard, our entire country is flat earth believing.
Given the topography and the layout of your country, I mean, it's just crazy to think that you could mistake it for a ball. I mean, there are places in Australia that you can just see roads going on and on and on forever. And, from my mother and father-in-law's balcony, you can see stuff that you just shouldn't be able to see, full stop. So it's a good country absolutely. To test it out in.
In the middle of Australia, I've done a bit of traveling in the middle of Australia. Like you said, those roads, they just go straight. They just go straight and level. They go off, like it's pretty hot in the middle of Australia, so there's a fair bit of refraction and optical effects. But there's these towers in the middle of Australia, emergency broadcasting towers for emergency frequencies. Obviously, no satellites out there, but they're about 50 meters tall and about 70 kilometers between them, and they've just got line of sight. That's just how they go. Every 70 kilometers, there's a tower. And that's how they relay. There's no satellites, there's no reception except for those towers. So, yeah, there's lots of tests we can do here in Australia.
That'd be a good video to make.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do down there, but well, hopefully, if you can manage to pull the line test off one, that'll be kind of cool. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I was bummed out because I was really thinking that was going to be a great proposition, and to me, it was logical, and it's funny because there was a lot of people that were really debating on whether or not it was a viable test or not, and the fact that it had a little bit of buoyancy to it, that line that you were using, it's like, well, then all you have to do is pull it taut and it should sink it, right? But well, I guess we're not going to know that.
Exactly. Yeah, that is the premise of the experiment. Yeah, so if it pulls it tight, it should go under the water and cut through that curvature if there is curvature. If not, it's flat and it will be measurable.
Yep, absolutely. So okay, Mitchell. So you recently came out, and like I said, we covered this on the Sunday show. We actually went through and played your number one proof video. But for the people here, can we kind of go through and get you to summarize exactly why you call this the number one flat Earth proof, and what about it, makes it that way to you?
Yeah, what you got on screen there is exactly where I wanted you to start. So this is, if you go back to 5 minutes 28, the start of that little drone demonstration. So this is just how we see things in our reality. I've got a little theodolite on my phone here. I look straight up 90 degrees. That's my drone, and this is kind of simulating what we see in the sky, because I'm asserting that we have a celestial flat plane above us. So when my drone moves out, it just changes distance. I just push the forward stick. It's not changing altitude at all. When it moves out away from me, or if I move out away from it, the angle that I'm measuring is going to change. And that's just in its own flat plane. And I've got my own flat plane down here, and we're measuring angles. This is just what we see in reality. It's all to do with perspective. And everything to do with the globe, they want to get away from this point, that anything to do with perspective. They say that what we see in the stars, what we see in this drone as it moves away from us, it should be to do with the curvature of the Earth. But this demonstration just shows that as the drone moves away, we see a lower elevation in angle. And I'm asserting this is what we see in the stars. So every star, if you want to go to 6 minutes 48, every star that we see has a GP, a geographical location, a geographical point on the Earth that is 90 degrees above it. If you are at that GP of the star, it will be 90 degrees above your head. So all the navigational stars, this is just how celestial navigation has worked and has always worked. It's all to do with the GP of that star, and we have something called a almanac. What's it called? The navigational.
The ephemeris.
Almanac?
The ephemeris. Oh, the navigational almanac.
The almanac. So it tells you where every GP of the star is for the next 100 years. It's
right.
Just a book with it knows the cycles. It knows where every star is going to be compared to your position on Earth. It's got all the GPs of the stars. So the way that celestial navigation works is using these GPs of the stars. We know them. They're predictable. They're cycles. It's what we observe. And you don't have to assert that you're on a globe at this point, but you do have to treat everything that you see as if it was flat. Because like on screen right there, to get a 90-degree point, a 90-degree angle perpendicular to anything above your head, the ground beneath you has to be flat. That's just a fundamental premise to
of geometry.
Something's perpendicular. Yeah, it's geometry.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure if anyone has seen a triangle, you will never see a triangle with a curved bottom on it. It's just not a triangle. That's how the premise to this works. Mm-hmm. Everything on that flat line where the GP meets the surface of the Earth, it has to be flat. You can't measure angles like I'm demonstrating here with this little animation. Someone measuring 30 degrees to that star has to start with the premise that they are measuring with the sextant, looking to the horizon, that's absolutely flat, that 0 point. So from the sextant to the horizon is a straight line. And that's just not possible on a globe, because on a globe, not only do they assert they have a curved surface beneath their feet. They also assert now, after the black swan, that the horizon is refracted. So that's two massive problems for if you think you're doing celestial navigation on a globe, because that's our argument, that the horizon is apparent, but we have to assume for the purposes of these angles that it is absolutely flat from our feet to the GP of that star to the horizon. And so that's the premise for this celestial navigation. So if you're measuring 30 degrees to a star, you can actually measure or calculate how far to the GP of that star you are away, because globers like to give us the proof of Polaris, and every 1 degree you move away from the GP of Polaris is 69 miles. Mm-hmm. And that holds true for every single star, not just for Polaris. They'd like to use that to prove their latitude, but it holds true for every single star. As you move 1 degree away from the GP of a star, it is 69 miles. So if you are if you're measuring an angle to a star of 80 degrees, that's 10 degrees off 90. So it will be 690 miles away from that star. Away from the GP of that star on the ground.
Let me stop you there real quick, because I just wanted to throw something in that occurred to me when we were watching this last week, and that and what you just said about 69 degrees being something that we can probably take off of every star. And I haven't done this myself, but I don't doubt it at all. In fact, we can probably do it just sitting here using our online software, from our positions at our house, going to these GP stars. So I have no doubt that it can be done. But what I brought up last week is like, when we're doing these triangulations, and the only thing that gives anything an appearance that we're in a dome is our own perspective, and that is brought on by the way that the eye works. The eye is a convex lens in it, right? And just like camera lenses have this convex lens, so we have a perspective in the way that we see everything. So if we can go up there and we can take these GP points for any of these stars, then also when you think about it, and if you do time-lapse photography and you look at the trails behind the stars at different, ring distances out from Polaris, you find that the further out they go a little bit longer and a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and they all seem to be pretty much commensurate with each other, right? And what that means is that it's very likely that all of the stars are probably exactly at the same altitude, right? I mean, just by looking at it that way. So it's funny. So then why do we have to have things like the EQ mount telescope, right? In the EQ mount telescope, you have to calibrate off of Polaris or Sigma Octantis, right? For reference stars. And then you can track a star automatically, or the telescope will track a star automatically across the arc of the sky. Well, again, the lens is operating in the very same way. And so mechanically, the GP, or not the GP, mechanically the EQ mount is compensating for the eye's perspective by the way that it's seeing the arc going across the sky, right? And the sextant is doing the exact same thing. We're looking at a flat ground here. We're looking at a flat sky, ultimately. And so where is the mechanical translation? Well, it's right in the sextant itself. And you see that, when you look at a sextant and how it works. So basically what I'm saying is that it appears that not only are all of the not only is the Earth flat, but the sky and the stars are also on a flat plane as well. And I think that, with that little secret and understanding, the triangulation methodology being used with the sextant, we could probably get a lot closer on our mapping of the flat Earth. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But this really has opened up a lot of doors, because what you're talking about here, Mitchell, is irrefutable. There is absolutely no way that this could possibly be on an arc and work. And it works to within, I think you can actually triangulate these positions to an arc minute or less, right? Maybe even, a few arc seconds. So it's pretty accurate.
I'd agree with that. You can get to 0.2 arc minutes with the sextant I have. So it really gets it down to the nitty gritty. I used a sextant every day for about 8 months, just measuring the sun. I was doing sun observations. I hadn't moved on to the moon yet. But when I did pull it out a few times at night, now the one I had, it was a Mark IV, I believe, about $450 brand new. And I could barely pull the moon up in it. It was hard to find the moon even because it wasn't that bright. The sun was just a little tiny dot. So I'm not saying that celestial navigation is impossible, because there's sextants out there that cost a lot more money that have a lot better optics involved. There's just a little optic piece in your sextant right by your eye that's used to magnify it a little bit. So I'm sure with different optics you can get much better quality, but I couldn't even find a star at night. And this was something that was used, out on the ocean by some. It's one you buy for celestial navigation, for actually practicing it.
Well, there's a lot less light pollution out there.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, there's all different kind of factors. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's a lot harder to do at night. And even with, like, if you are in a moving vessel, I'm sure they more likely took most of their readings during the day and used the moon. They have a thing called Stark's lunar tables, or lunar charts for the moon, to know from every point on Earth where the moon is at any given second in your sky, if you can see it. So
how would they know that, eh? How would they know that? That sounds like it's got a funky lens in it, like a really narrow lens to it or something. But in terms of the flat stars above, I totally agree with that. And I think that is evidenced by the entire lack of parallax that we see with the constellations and all the stars.
Exactly. And that is exactly right. There is no parallax that we are witnessing up there. And when they claim that there is parallax, they're really reaching for it. We can tell there's just a 1 RCH of redshift parallax or something like that. In other words, it's something that they don't actually see the position of the star move, but they're seeing the color change a little bit, which of course could be magnetic fields. It could be a lot of different things that actually cause that. But because it fits their narrative, they have to call that, that's definitely shift in parallax position, which it's nonsense. And it's been debunked too, quite handily.
I've seen them quoting ridiculously small amounts of parallax and saying, look, there. I mean, what they quote in parallax is what LIGO can detect in the length of its arms. It's what is it, a 10,000th of a nanometer or something?
Yeah, something like
millimeter.
That. Which I don't know if I believe. Well, I don't know. You probably could detect that, but who knows? But
essentially, to the eye, to the observer, there is no parallax being observed, and that would go a long way to suggest that what you're looking at is in the same level above you.
Right, in the same plane.
Yeah, you'd actually see parallax in. You'd see parallax in just a star trail photography, with the moon being so close in the heliocentric model, a couple of 100,000 miles away, compared to a stars in the background being trillions of miles away. There'll be heaps of parallax in star trails. We see none of it.
Yeah, it would be spaghetti junction up there if it's how they describe it to us. It would be so obvious that we probably would all be motion sick.
Yeah, absolutely, we would be. So anyway, Mitchell, continue on. I just wanted to throw that in there.
There's so much to unpack in this.
Yeah, there's so much. There is so much that is backing up what you are saying. That we, other things that we've explored. The mount on the telescope. Which of course the Globers thought that was there. Well, that's our proof, hands down. That would never work on a flat Earth, and it's like, au contraire. When you take perspective into consideration, which you guys never do, then the only way that a telescope like that could work is on a flat Earth, right? Because it's essentially emulating the dome of perspective that Jeran has kind of coined that term. And of course, mechanically, they want you to believe that it's offset by the curvature of the Earth. But it's like, no, it's actually offsetting the perspective of the eye, not the curvature of the Earth. And the same thing's going on with this. So
yeah, it's like looking at a plane coming over the horizon, and the big arc that it does over you, when you know full well the plane is at a steady altitude, but it looks as though it's arcing over you. It's all down to perspective, and like you say, they completely ignore that.
Yep, exactly. So
well, yeah, there isn't one curve calculator out there that takes into account Rayleigh's criterion, the angular resolution limit of the human eye. They're all for the human eye. You know, if you go out and look at the beach, angular resolution at 0.02 degrees is about the average. And it only gets bigger when you throw in an atmosphere that isn't perfect. This was taken in a perfectly nitrogen, oxygen-based atmosphere with no wind, no humidity, anything like that. This is the minimum. That's why it's the limit. And at 3 miles, it's 5.5 feet that you cannot make out. Amazing that their Earth curve calculator is about 6 feet at 3 miles that you can't make out. So what they did, they took the limits of the human eye and just reverse calculated it.
Yes.
And this is what makes it a nonsense that you can see the ISS from the ground at 250 miles up, the size of a 747 or a football field, they say, or whatever. I'd hazard that's below the 0.02, or pretty sure I've seen someone do the calculations on that the ISS shouldn't actually be visible.
No, I did it. In fact, I did it at the Dallas conference. I went through all of that, the ISS, and it gets better than that, because it's not just that you shouldn't be able to see it because of angular resolution, but you have to understand the ISS is not lit up on the outside. So what they want you to believe, what they have to make you believe, is that somehow the ISS is always at every point along your journey that you can track it, which can be anywhere from 1,000 to 2,500 miles, depending on, where it passes over you. That it will always keep the exact angle perfect to reflect the sunlight that's bouncing off of the solar arrays into your eye. Now that's just impossible. And if people cannot see that, they are completely lost in space, because that's exactly what they're asking you to believe. It'd be one thing. Yeah, granted, it's too low for a perspective as far as angular resolution, but there is no way that you would ever be able to reflect light so perfectly into a target 250 miles on the ground while you're traveling at 5 miles per second for 8 minutes, right? I'm sorry, never going to happen. So anyway, sorry, Mitchell. I'll let you go back to where you were.
So many wild tangents we can go.
I know, right? That's how we roll.
It's all about perspective, what we see. So perspective is a linear effect, and we can see that in every star, especially with Polaris, how they like to say that every 1 degree is 69 miles, and that's how you get the latitude. Mm-hmm. That's a linear declination that we're seeing in the stars as we move as we're measuring 1 degree less. It's 69 miles. On a globe, if we were traveling around the curvature of an Earth, it would be exponential, not linear. And I think that's what you touched on last week too.
Yes.
But to get back to how we use the sextant for that's a good image.
I'll back up a little bit. Yeah.
So if we're measuring an angle to that star, we're getting 30 degrees there, we can assert that we're somewhere on that circle on the ground there. That's a circle of equal altitude. So everything on that circle of equal altitude, because we know we have a triangle, those 3 points of the triangle, the bottom of the triangle being absolutely flat, that entire circle of equal altitude that we've just made is absolutely flat. The area in it, the distance to the GP, everything in that area of equal altitude is absolutely flat. And that's where we can start physically measuring the actual measurable flatness of the Earth, because to do celestial navigation and to actually hone in on where you are, you need to do this with multiple stars, as it shows right there. So you need to do that with about a minimum of 3 stars. You can do it with as many stars as you can, but the further away the GP is, I think you can go down to about 15 degrees above the horizon, because then refraction comes into it. But even if it was 15 degrees above the horizon, that's an area of equal altitude of about 10,370 something miles. That's a diameter.
It's
of
huge.
That.
Yes, huge.
It's massive. with an area, just that one measurement. If you're measuring a star 15 degrees above the horizon, the area of that area of equal altitude is 84.5 million miles squared. It is huge. That's just from one measurement. And so if you go to near the end of the video, where I have the map of the GPs at a certain point in time, we can, just from 2 observers being on that a little bit further.
Oops, a little further. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit further. It's got a kind of a black and white map. And then that's a map of all, right there.
There they go.
So this is a map here of, you can play it out because it comes into where the circles of equal altitude play into this. We can literally measure our entire world as flat using this method. If you just keep playing it, please, Bob.
Okay.
I put in the circles of equal altitude at the end of this. So that's just one circle of equal altitude. And then that's at 15 degrees. And then if we use the other GPs of all the other navigational stars around us, we can literally measure the entire world as flat, because we need to assume, number one, to get an angle to something, you need a flat surface. You need a 90 degrees where the GP comes down to. That area of equal altitude, one area of equal altitude is absolutely flat. If you have multiple areas of equal altitude, which is required to get your actual location, doesn't matter if you think
to be able to triangulate.
To triangulate.
Mm-hmm.
You can literally measure your entire world as flat, the entire known world. And that's why for me, it's number one flat Earth proof, because that is a physical measurement. We navigate as if it was flat. We have to treat everything as if it was flat. We see everything as flat. It is just so obvious that our entire world is flat. It's just one of those things that's been under our noses for centuries, maybe millennia, however long they've been doing navigation. It's just always been there. It's always been used. And at no point can you assume that you are on a globe on a curved surface.
Well, not to mention that the official documentation from NASA and the US Army and everything else says a non-rotating flat Earth. So,
Absolutely. I've got a helicopter and a plane pilot I'm going to interview on one of my flat Earth school sessions. And he provided me he provided me a document that he got given probably 20, 30 years ago. It's still current today. They've updated it, but they've still got in it on the very first page, for navigational purposes, we need to assume that the Earth is flat. The Earth is stationary. It says that.
Imagine that.
And how can that possibly be if you're actually flying around a spinning ball, for goodness sake?
There's just so many things. It's going to be a great conversation with that flat Earth pilot, because it's through that navigation that he became a flat earther, and then he started questioning it. He kind of became an outcast in his industry. But that's what happens. It's so polarizing. If you weren't told we were on a globe, you would never know we're on a globe, because you have to treat everything as flat, everything is stationary and enclosed. And that's just the world around us. That's what we observe.
Well, he might be an outcast in his industry, but he's a hero in flat Earth, that's for sure. Any one of these people with significant experience, the laser guy, the missile guy, Sean, I can't remember his name now, it's been so long. But yeah, any one of these guys is an absolute hero in my eyes.
Yeah, Sean McCreary, that's right. Yep.
Brilliant.
Missile Sparrow. defense system.
And they all do. Every one of these weapons experts, gunners mates, weapons expert, any type of weapon ballistics. Well, they tell us first of all that obviously Coriolis doesn't exist, and they won't sit there and say, oh well, you can't shoot at things because by calculation it should be blocked by 3,000 feet of Earth curvature. It's like no, they aim at it, they shoot it, they hit it. End of story. It's like,
and they shouldn't, basically.
And they shouldn't, right?
And if anyone wants a good cache of interviews of subject matter experts, then hop over to Mark Sargent's playlist of them all. Yeah. But of course, I must be a shill for mentioning Mark Sargent. Oh, sorry, Eric.
That's the thing that actually got me over the edge. I was on the fence for a long time about flat Earth before I saw Mark Sargent's flat Earth subject matter experts, and they really put me over the line. They are awesome. I recommend it to anyone. Just having an honest look into flat Earth. See those things. They are, as we said, in their areas of expertise. They are the experts. They have to treat everything that they see and everything that they do in their profession as flat.
Yep. And it is amazing, they always constantly have got to dance around and make up ridiculous excuses. One thing that always amuses me, and I just had this random thought today, it's like, the dumbest claim that the Globers make is that you can see boats going over a horizon. But according to Neil deGrasse Tyson, right, it's too low at 120,000 feet to see any curvature. It's like, wait a minute. So you can be 6 feet above the ground and 3 miles away. That's low enough to see the boats go over the curvature, but somehow not at 120,000 feet. I mean, and that's just the beginning. As we all know, it just goes on and on and on and on, and it never stops. The excuses, they're constantly backpedaling. Oh my God. Dude, I don't know if you're familiar with Flatzoid or not. Flatzoid FE, are you familiar with him, Mitchell?
Yeah, I know Flatzoid. He's an awesome, South African flat earther.
So he put out a video about Ranty today. Of course, Ranty is trying to debunk this, and he is failing absolutely miserably. And now it's what amazes me is on my 24/7 feed I have several videos that highlight Ranty talking about perspective and that this is how it works over and over and over again. And then I sit there and I listen to him, what's being quoted on these Flatzoid videos, especially the one I watched today. And he's like completely done a turnaround, completely saying the opposite. And he knows damn well that it's not true. So this is something that, you just have to say, all right, who got to this guy? How much are they paying him? Why in the world would he do this? And I'm kind of more interested in that than anything, it's because it's not that he's convinced me in the least that the world's a ball or anything like that. Is I'm more curious about who got to you and what, how.
I'm just ashamed.
I think it's either blackmail or threats, right? They're either offering monetarily, like monetary incentive, or maybe like I'll break your knees or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but Ranty is such an unlikely person. Go ahead, Mitchell.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I think he's a genius. I think he's just been a mole in the Globers, and in the Globers kind of, they've accepted him. They've brought him in with open arms. He's in their group now. He's getting all their dirty little secrets.
I'd like to think that. I'd like to think that too, but for now, I'm just ashamed he's British.
Yeah, I hear you. It's crazy though. He's done that, and yeah, you're right. That would be absolutely brilliant if he came out and said, "Yep, I trolled everybody, and while I was a Glober, here's what I found out." Right, and came back and really gave us the inside scoop. Then he would be obviously a hero. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that, because the whole thing is just too completely bizarre, You
know what? We would get flat earthers defecting left, right, and center if there were proofs of the globe, which there isn't. So to have someone as notable as Ranty to defect back to the globe, like there's obviously something going on that he wants to find out, that he's curious about, I don't know, who knows? We can't delve into his logic behind it, but there's a bit of a saying going around that while Ranty was a flat earther, he couldn't really prove that the Earth was flat. It was only because he became a glober again that he has proved the Earth is absolutely flat with his observations and his arguments of what's now titled the Blackpool Swan. Have you heard of that, Bob?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. So everything to do with that absolutely takes into perspective something that the globers hate to do, and now they're forced to do because there's some mountains in the background, there's a tower in the foreground, and plus there's a black swan observation to the left of it. But now they're detailing what we've been saying since the beginning of this argument, that everything is perspective, and he's kind of got them to now detail the perspective of the mountains and the tower. And it's comical now.
It is. It truly is, because he literally, I mean, what they're saying, literally at this point is, no, we've never claimed that there was a geometric horizon. The first time I heard that, I'm like, what? Well, your whole argument, in fact, you don't have an argument unless you do have a geometric horizon. And when you're talking about, like shots on the Black Swan, where it's only 1.2 miles away, and you're saying that you wouldn't be able to see that, it's like, you are completely out of your mind. Of course you'd be able to see a geometric horizon at 1.2 miles. But the fact is that, there never has been a geometric horizon because there is no Earth curvature, and the apparent horizon is always, variable for whatever condition of the day, happens to be, dominant. Right. So yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah. That he's got him, at least he's got him doing that. And maybe if he can bring them out on enough points, they're going to essentially walk right back into their own, wall or a trap or something. But boy, I'm having fun watching it happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally.
There's kind of a bit of a label that we're putting on these sorts of people, like Simon Dan, who says you and your reference frames are ruined, like Mr. Sensible, who says at best all you've done is debunk the radius of the Earth. We're calling them anti-flat earthers because after seeing the Black Swan, this is what the Black Swan does to these people. They now have a choice to just refute every single one of our arguments, being an anti-flat earther, or they can look into flat Earth. And both of those choices that they have after seeing the Black Swan does not involve having their globe anymore, because by saying that we don't have a geometric horizon, that's throwing your globe under the bus. You no longer have a globe. You no longer have that premise of curvature where ships disappear over it. It's a physical blockage. They're now saying that it's a refracted horizon, which is apparent. That's our argument. That's not a globe argument. And that's these people, they're anti-flat earthers. They just go against everything that we say. It doesn't matter if they throw their globe under the bus in the process, as long as they're refuting our arguments. That's their goal.
Exactly. Yeah, just deny it. They'll say that the sky is red when it's clearly blue or anything like that. And that's what I've noticed, that, it doesn't seem to matter what the point is. They're just going to argue it, even if it's completely and utterly ridiculous. And I guess the idea is, and of course, I don't think anybody in their normal right mind would say, yeah, just argue anything, no matter how stupid it sounds. And you'll actually, convince people, unless there's actually an element of psychology, which I think there might be, because, if somebody argued, a certain point that is generally preposterous, but they argued it in such a way that they sounded very confident, very sure of themselves. They presented it well, they orated it well, all of this stuff. They're going to take some people in on that, right? Because then what's happening is the audience is evaluating the man or the person presenting the argument and not the argument. Right. And that's why, you get people like Hollywood people that are spokesmen or spokespeople for, all the stupid things that the elite wants you to believe. And of course, the latest things going on these days is, not the least of that. It's absolutely happening. So, when they need you to believe something utterly stupid and buy into it, they'll bring the Hollywood faces in and the really popular people and stuff like that. But so that's where they've gone to the flat earth, is they're saying, at this point, well, it doesn't matter. Just put up an argument and be confident in it, and you're going to sway people. And amazingly so, I guess it works. I mean, it certainly doesn't work on me, and I honestly don't see it working on anybody else. But
the reason that it works for them is because they already have sort of the position of authority, right? So, I mean, all of science, all the textbooks, all the curriculum is on their side. And so as long as they just present whatever the argument may be with some form of authority or confidence, then, yeah, that's really all they have to do, right?
Yeah,
they don't actually have any meat of the argument, nothing cogent or sensible, just that element of authority and correctness in terms of the textbooks, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's very true, John.
Yep. They have the dominant position. They have the entire Western world literature in their favor. All they have to do is just open a book and say, look, it says right here, we got a curvature. Look at NASA, we've got pictures from space. It's these mindless arguments that they put forward that gets the normies, that gets the people that haven't had an honest look into flat Earth. It's channels like us that put these proofs forward that shows, that has a bit of logic behind it, has reality, what we observe. That's when you start looking into where your world actually is, when you see the opposing side. And I love the title of this live stream, Bob, the Flat Earth Explosion, because that's what we're seeing. We're seeing an explosion in Flat Earth everywhere. It is becoming more mainstream. They have to address it on massive mainstream news channels, on massive mainstream science discussions. They have to address it.
Mm-hmm.
It's exploding everywhere.
They truly do. I mean, it's just like, Zack, you did a video where the guy was talking in the baseball booth, and he's saying, well, half the members of the club are, talking about flat Earth and all that stuff, right? I mean, so
yeah, the St. Louis Cardinals, and he was even saying the smartest guy on the team, the one who does they even said NASA style data on his swing and things like that, trying to make it better. Really smart, bright guy. He was like the leading flat earther on the team.
Yeah, I know.
And yeah.
Yep. And of course we've got a soccer team that is flat earth. And now that we have that, let me actually go to that. Hang on just a second. As far as some of the other stuff, where is it? This. So I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but the Bare Naked Ladies, right? Came out with a new album, right? And apparently they are saying all kinds of stuff that is kind of making you wonder if they are not kind of leaning towards flat Earth. They seem to be giving conspiracy theorists a lot of weight and stuff like that. And you listen to some of the lyrics in this album that are said, and it just makes you wonder, right? There was also, what were some of the other things, Zach, that popped up in the week? Restaurants being named after flat Earth, and what else was there?
Yeah, there's a pizza place in London called the Flat Earth Cafe, I think, or Flat Earth Pizza.
Mm-hmm.
There's a place in Australia. It's called Flat Earth. Oh, I forget I found that on a LinkedIn article. They were trying to hire an accountant to run their accounting stuff.
Well, do you remember the pizza shop on Toy Story called Planet Pizza?
Yes.
Which appears all sorts of little nuggets like that around as well.
Yeah, in a kid's thing, and the whole pizza, that's their little Illuminati joke, right? The whole pizza thing. But, it's interesting because you think about who the Bare Naked Ladies are, right? And they are the ones that do the theme song for The Big Bang Theory, right? This is like, ooh, boy. And that's one of the mainstream's biggest propaganda shows out there. And then what was the other thing that they did too? That was major. Cami mentioned it.
I recently got followed by one of the one of the what you just mentioned. I'm proud to say I don't know what the show is called.
Was it Flat Earth?
No, the Big Bang Theory.
The Big Bang Theory TV show.
Yeah, one of them who's got like 100,000 followers recently followed me on Twitter.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Totally out of the blue. Yeah.
Well,
Zack, I told you who he was. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that. There's restaurants being named by that. Of course, there is a restaurant in, I believe it's Reno. I think it's in Reno, or right around that is called Flat Earth Pizza. And there's all these businesses. Gosh, somebody posted a bunch of businesses in Skype. And gosh, I can't find where they are now. But anyway, we were just looking at all these things. It's absolutely exploding. It's like Flat Earth is appearing everywhere. And whether or not it's, intentionally pointing to Flat Earth as being legitimate, or, whether this is just some sort of weird, bizarre psychological thing that's gotten into society, I don't know. But, we've watched it grow.
It's exploding. We know it. They're trying to censor it so badly. It's exploding. That guy's name is Cregan Dow, apparently. I'd never heard of him, but he had something in his bio about the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, there are people that are even naming products with flat Earth in it. I found a belt from a hiking type website. And it was called this, that, or other. And then at the end, it had -- Flat Earth. It's like, what is that? And they don't mention Flat Earth anywhere down there saying they're Flat Earthers or anything like that, like in their About Us or this or that. But people are just throwing Flat Earth onto all kinds of stuff now. And it's not just Flat Earthers. This is commercially viable now. You can find T-shirt sites that have stuff anti-Flat Earth, with all kinds of different T-shirts that they'll have certain things that are Flat Earth, and then they have T-shirts that are making fun of Flat Earth. So it's not just people. It's you can make money now off of selling Flat Earth merchandise. Mm-hmm. It's getting that big.
There's a couple.
Maybe they're just looking at like Google AdWords and saying, "Oh, well, Flat Earth is a pretty popular search term. Let's just call our new lunchbox the Flat Earth lunchbox or whatever." I don't know.
Yeah, really. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry. What were you saying?
There was a car advert. I think it was either Mitsubishi or that had a complete Flat Earth theme to it. Does anyone remember that?
I do remember that. Actually, there's been a couple of them like that, which is pretty amazing. And the other thing I was trying to think of earlier was, of course, the Bare Naked Ladies, who is the one that sang the Big Bang Theory theme, right? Is also the ones that did that duet with Chris Hadfield on the ISS. Remember that? Where there was miraculously no delay and everything, they were able to complete the whole song with no problem whatsoever, or no glitch outs, or just such nonsense. But so it's just interesting that they would be coming out now and kind of indicating like they're kind of headed towards the Flat Earth side, And I think a lot of artistic people are probably, that way. And we've actually noticed this from the get-go. If you're kind of a creative type of person, the kind that uses the creative side of your brain, if you're an artist or a musician or a free thinker, or even a lot of actors, right? I mean, I was surprised to hear some of the people in Hollywood that are Globebusters fans. And in fact, one of my favorite actors is a Globebusters fan. And I was amazed to hear that. But it just seems like, there are people out there, all over the place that are fully aware of it. Huh?
Who was
it? I suppose I could say it's Kelsey Grammer.
Well, at least I know the name. But I think Zack nailed it with his. We're about to see a mass genocide, and then they're going to just come out as the Earth is flat. Has always been flat, and anyone thought otherwise is not going to be around anymore. Is that what you were saying, Zack?
Oop.
Sorry, I was muted. No, yeah, it seems that if you look back in, right before World War One, they had the whole, we're going to give everybody a prick because of, in the Spanish flu, people were, they did the whole mask thing back then. There's all kinds of pictures of it, but and then they had all these wars, World War One, which still nobody can quite give me a legitimate reason for taking place. So I don't, maybe there was a big divide back then, and that's when they were switching over to the globe. It was still being taught in schools in the 1920s that the Earth was flat, but I think right in that transition phase, they had to wipe out a lot of the older people that could tell all the younger generations, no, this is stupid. We've known this, for this long, and here's the reasons why. So you get rid of all the people that could explain it to you, and then come in all these Rockefeller textbooks, giving
and
us
this
the globe.
ties in all the enormous, massive, overly engineered, insane asylums that we see all over the earth.
Well, yeah, in the early 1900s, there were, insane asylums that housed 20,000 people.
Yeah, that is so weird.
Eight counties around that place, there wasn't even that many people.
I know. And the other thing is where did all the orphans come from?
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that, when I saw that Awaranon video that they were talking about, that they actually had babies, preemie babies at the circus freak show, right? It's like, I can't even imagine that happening, let alone in a society that should have been so innocent, 100+ years ago. But apparently not only did it happen, but it was commonplace. And it's like, what,
they were shipping them out to Australia as well, weren't they?
Probably all over the place, and that's of course the whole story behind, the English is they supposedly shipped everybody off to Australia for their, penal colonies, right? And that's how that came about, supposedly. So, you're all criminals in Australia. It's just,
well, in reality,
it's just the basis.
It's crazy, man. It really is.
We locally have been going to a lot of shipwrecks lately around just our local area, and you see the kind of list of the types of people on board. They're mostly children. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is, and it's just hard to believe that our history has gotten so convoluted in such a short amount of time. It reminds me of something that I read somewhere, and I can't remember where it was that I read it, but it was a very deep article expose that was talking about how the 20th century literally belonged to the devil, right? And that when the 20th century started, this is when all of these crazy things would start to come to pass, right? So the 20th century would officially start in 1901, right? And think about all the things that happened during the 1900s that literally brought this world to the brink of insanity that we're sitting on right now. All of it took place in that 100 years, and, the more we're getting all kinds of weird things happening, like, Mandela effects. And I don't know what you think about, I'm going to ask you, Mitchell, what do you think of Mandela effect? Do you have an opinion on it one way or another? Oops, am I on?
Mitchell.
Apologies, sorry, I was just rounding up the kids. What was the question? I'm so sorry.
Oh, no problem. The question was, the Mandela effect. Do you have a take on it?
I did look into it just shortly before looking into flat Earth. At the moment, no, not really. I don't really have, like, I've seen things from both sides, whether it be things planted there on purpose to give the illusion of a Mandela effect, or whether it's an actual thing that has been changed. But no, not really. To put it short, no, I don't really.
Yeah, and it's not a problem. I mean, it's not like you have to believe in it or not. I mean, I find it interesting. I have to say that from what I've seen about it. And, some of the things that I was absolutely certain about, like, for example, in the movie Moonraker, Dolly wearing braces, there was no doubt in my mind Dolly wore braces. There was no doubt in my mind C-3PO never had a silver leg. There was no doubt in my mind that Scarecrow never had a gun. And, there's so many things like that. And it's like, all right, so what would explain stuff like that? And believe it or not, there are schools of thought out there that kind of give an explanation for that. And I've kind of talked about that with Brian Staveley a little bit. But again, like everything else, it brings us back to the nature of our reality. What is real? What is the nature of our reality? What are we really doing here? What is the purpose of us being here? And I think that, there's so many different answers to that, and it's meant to be convoluted, but it really does. It's kept me searching for those answers literally for my entire life. And now more so than ever, because, I'm watching what's happening in the earth right now, and I wouldn't say that what's going on right now is necessarily the passage in Revelations where he talks about, no man could buy or sell, unless he had the mark of the beast, essentially on his forehead or his right hand or something like that. So I'm not really seeing that, exactly, but I am seeing a lot of talk about stuff like that, right? And to me, I just, it opens up a whole new line of thinking about this reality, once again. And, it kind of takes me in places that, sometimes it's kind of refreshing and other times it's scary as hell, but I don't know. And I'm sorry if I got off on a tangent here, but it really does, right? All this blows your mind when you think about it, how crazy the world is literally getting. And, it makes you question what we're really doing here. Do any of you, philosophically, so if we step off into an area of going purely philosophical, what do you think? And I'll start with you, Mitchell, just for fun, because you're the new guy. We can pick on you. What do you think is the purpose of our life and why we're here? Have you thought about that much?
That's a massive question.
Yes, it is. Huge. Yes, it is.
Well, for me, I'll take it back a step. For me, all I can experience is reality. I don't like to get into imagination land. That's where the globe comes from. That's where all these concepts come from. That for me, I can't prove to myself is real or not. So all my videos are everything that is in my reality, everything that's around me. I try to be in the moment. I try not to think about too much what's in the past, what's in the future, because that's where anxiety and depression gets from. I just try and be here right now. But in saying that, like there's experiences that we have, like deja vu. I get a lot of deja vus. My eldest son, he's getting weekly, sometimes daily deja vus. Whatever that means, whatever that, if it could be tapping into something that there's a lot of things that we can't prove, but yeah, we experience these things. It is a wonderful world that we live in. And before Flat Earth, I wasn't religious. I didn't really consider a creator or a god. But upon looking into Flat Earth and realizing what the ontological primitives are, you've only got two choices to believe. When it comes down to it, either we were just out of chance, out of evolution, come from a speck of space dust somewhere, or we were put here for purpose by a creator. And that's where Flat Earth path takes you. That's what I if you want to get into a belief system, that's kind of what you have to believe when you look at the world around you. Everything is just too perfect. Like there's conversations.
It logically follows. It does. I agree with you.
Absolutely, it logically follows. It is just the conversation that you go down when you look into Flat Earth. There's conversations where we're having with our children now. My daughter's sitting here right now. She constantly asks me, where was the first ant? Where did it come from? What about the first human? What about how did water first get here? And these are the things that make you think, how did these happen? Were we created? That's where it takes me personally, anyway.
Well, billions and billions of years ago. No, I'm with you. I think well said. before Flat Earth came about, I was a stereotypical atheist, and as such, I would say we have no meaning of being here. We're just absolutely random. But it wasn't actually Flat Earth that turned me from that. It was looking into evolution, and from that, I realised it was undoubted that we were created. That it wasn't random chance, and if we were created, then we were created for a reason. And so my answer to that, Bob, would be we're here as on trial. Basically, we're being tested, and I know that because when I do things right, it feels good, and when I do things wrong, it haunts me, and it doesn't feel good. So there's got to be something to that. But like you say, we can't prove any of this stuff. But that's where I'm coming from.
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get you, John. That makes perfect sense to me. It's just, because it's all interesting. All of us here, are in very different life situations, yet we have seemed to stumble on to a lot of the same truths, a lot of the same questions. Some of our lives are better than others. Some of us are going through more trials than others right now in our lives. And, it's like no matter where you are, I can't help but think that you're right. I mean, this is all meant to teach us something. It's meant to give us a larger message and, to maybe even get a glimpse inside to what our purpose is. And then, of course, after that, what comes after this, right? And, I've studied this for a long, long time. And, I tend to believe that for whatever reason, we do seem to keep coming back here. And I'm not so sure that, sometimes I wonder, it's like, do we keep coming back here because we're prisoners here? Or do we keep coming back here because we have more lessons to learn? And that's kind of, at a place where I wonder about, because I really do believe that there are so many people, especially, some of the children, especially that are being born in these days, that are so aware, and some of them are even aware of moments in their past life that are absolutely traceable, right? That can be documented, that can be verified. And, you have to ask yourself, how could they possibly do this? How are they getting these insights into truths that historically we have documented? And then, they seem to have a little bit different message in the way of looking at things. And it's like, it's so amazing. But that's where I'm at right now. Do we keep coming back here because we have more to learn, or do we keep coming back here because this is some sort of a prison that literally takes our energy, and we're being fed off of through all the different types of energy that we experience, whether it's grief, joy, anger, hatred, love, all these different emotional states, I suppose could be considered energetic food for some sort of creature, whatever, I don't know. But, I don't mind going there in those types of thoughts. I mean, I honestly don't care what people think, of me going there, because to me, if you're not asking those kinds of questions, then you're not really aware of what's going on in life, But yet I also understand very much where Mitchell's coming from. It's like, well, yeah, you can let your mind go there and wander a lot, but you can also generate a lot of anxiety by asking hard questions like that and not having the answers. Then you can sit there and go, oh boy, what have I gotten myself into? So
I think if it's a prison of our making. I think it could be a paradise or a prison, and we keep cocking it up, which is probably why we keep coming back. But even today, if all of us decided tomorrow we wanted it to be paradise, then it would no longer be a prison. It's philosophy,
I agree.
And maybe that's the thing, they want, or the creator just wants everybody to be able to get along before he lets them out of, the incubation stage. If we're going to sit here and kill each other and fight over resources that are so abundant that we have enough for everybody to have plenty of, but we hoard it and let it go to waste, that's not somebody that I would want to hang out with on a large scale, So maybe maybe we've been real close. We see all these giant, huge structures that some civilizations had to be so advanced and hopefully, peaceful. But eventually, I'm thinking it went wrong and he had to hit the reset button, the creator. So maybe, we're definitely not hitting the mark this time around.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we need to get it right. Just saying, maybe we need to all get it right before we're allowed to really, see everything.
Could be. Go ahead, John.
Well, I was going to say the whole thing with scarcity, that drives prices up, right? So supply and demand, if you have low supply, then and a high demand, then prices go up. And so there is definitely a monetary incentive to have scarcity of whatever the product might be, whether it's real estate or oranges or whatever. And on the ball Earth, there's definitely a finite amount of resources across the board. That's for everything. But on flat Earth, there is a potentiality for far more resources out there than we're aware of. And so it would make a lot of sense for the powers that ought not be to create the illusion or this perception of scarcity in order to, basically price gouge. And so that, that's just another one of those little potential motives for the lie is, we'll say they're on a ball that they can't get off of that has a finite amount of space so that we can keep the price of corn up or something. I don't know. Maybe not corn, but whatever. Real estate for sure.
No, and I agree. And of course, if you control people's minds, again, you control their realities. And, that's one thing that I've really been fascinated with is consciousness science. And when people do have a shared vision or a shared belief or a shared intention, it is amazing how much faster things can manifest. One of the most basic examples of that, not necessarily being shared, but things like placebos, right? And placebos, what do they tell us? They tell us that something that is utterly bullshit can be implanted in the mind, but when the belief system, gets behind that notion that's implanted in the mind, then it can bring it to fruition and manifestation quickly, right?
Well, that's psychosomatics, but I think it's a testament to how powerful faith is, right? I mean, if you truly believe something and say know it to be true, or if your mind is tricked into believing something is a medicine when it really isn't, it's that faith that it's going to work that ultimately heals you and not the medicine itself, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So, okay, well, cool. Let's kind of shift gears here and we'll step out of the philosophical zone. But just trying to get to know a little bit about you, Mitchell. But I still like you. But I think about stuff like this too all the time, and I don't really hide it. What I think, and I'm just curious what other people think. So I ask. So there you have it. So let's go ahead, and I want to cover a couple of nifty little things that I found in the news this week. Let's see, which one do I want to look at? Oh, let's look at this one first. So speaking of PSYOPs, right? So Cami sent me this one. It says, "Who owns the moon?" And you wouldn't think that, necessarily anybody would own the moon, but apparently not true. Okay, so if we read this, it says, "Space travel is in the news lately, with individuals like Jeff Bezos going on rocket ships. With all that chatter, a decade-old question resurfaces again. Who owns the moon, the other planets, and space in general? Christopher Lamar is the CEO of Lunar Embassy. His father claimed the ownership of the moon and all the solar system planets and Pluto 4 decades ago." Oh my God, I just wonder how in the hell he did that, but let's keep going.
Ashamed to say, Bob, that I bought my dad an acre on the moon, and I've got a certificate to prove it. Cost me $20, and I'm sure it's worth more than a Bitcoin now.
Yeah, probably. That's crazy.
I looked into that. I looked into that too. I was going to buy it. I didn't go ahead and buy a little bit. Yeah, but that's where this goes. What do you get out of owning planets and the moon and these sorts of things? You get to sell it.
Yeah, to another sucker. To another
mining
sucker.
rights or
Yeah. Well, it's like anything else. It only has the value that we assign to it. So if we have this official paper deed to an imaginary strip of land on the moon or on Mars or Venus or anything like that, and somebody somewhere believes that it has value, then they're going to pay money for it. Me personally, I would love to have the Cydonia area on Mars. I would love to own that, right? Because you can take that to some clown that is a Richard Hoagland fan and you could sell it for a fortune.
Well, my certificate is going to go on eBay tomorrow, I'll tell you. I think we should start a new crypto coin, the Moon coin or something. Oh, there probably already is one, isn't there?
There probably is. And that's another thing you have to be really careful of with crypto is, because there are some crypto coins that are legitimate, like the Hex coin, for example, which started really low and ironically is doing quite well. But now people are saying, oh, well, look at all these suckers. Let's offer a new coin and they'll buy into it for 1,000 plus whatever. And then they'll just, kind of jerk the value out from underneath it and, defraud people out of it. I mean, anytime there's quick money to be made, there's going to be scammers. It's just the way it is. So,
Well, look at Dogecoin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll look at who's putting out the lie. I mean, did you have the notion, John, that maybe one day he or you would be able to go visit that acre? Because we're going to have, moon bases and hotels up there, and all of this stuff's going to be up there. They keep telling us pretty soon.
I'm not sure I ever did. I just thought it was a novelty. I mean, we're talking probably 25 years ago that I bought it. I don't know how much an acre on the moon's going for these days. Probably about 10 cents. But yeah, no, I don't think I ever thought the moon landings were legit, even from a very young age. There was something extremely fishy about that, and that actually turned out to be my first sort of conspiratorial toe dip. Was spending 3 years researching the moon landings, because this was after 9/11, and just thinking to myself, I don't know what is real and what isn't real in this world. I need to just pick a subject and deep dive into it and know everything about it and be able to come up with an informed opinion as to whether it was real or not. And after 3 years, it was absolutely undeniable that the moon landings were fake. And I went round and I told all my friends, and they all thought I was a nutter. But yeah.
Nope, it looks like you're going to turn a profit. Someone just looked it up, $24.99.
All right.
There you go.
Get $5 right on.
Beats any
25-year investment. You made $5.
That's awesome. So anyway, let me finish reading this. So his father claimed ownership of the moon and all the solar system planets, and Pluto 4 decades ago, using the Space Treaty from the United Nations and the U.S. Homestead Act. Since then, millions of people bought stakes of the moon and other planets. In addition to the Lunar Embassy, NASA is also getting involved in space ownership. Of course they would. The government agency signed contracts with space exploration companies to collect lunar dirt for a small amount of money. Oh, God, what a scam. Journalist Atasa Araxia Abramian says NASA's goal is to establish a precedent for property laws in space. Wow.
Isn't Buzz Aldrin still selling bits of dirt he's finding in his socks or whatever that he took to the moon?
Probably.
I think
Yeah.
it might have been just satire, a joke, but someone was put out an article that he tried selling a quarter to somebody from like 1976.
No, I think that
like
was real. Yeah, he stuck it on eBay, I think. I think that was actually legit. But I've got a book inside that was called Who Built the Moon. Have people read that? It's bunch of Masons writing about.
No, I haven't read that one, but I have heard the stories. You talk about when you go back to tribes like the Dogon tribe in Africa, where, they basically say that the progenitors came from Sirius and that there was a time that the moon was not here. The earth was moonless. So I've heard that.
Say the same as well, don't they?
Yeah, there was even a name for these people. The people that came after the moon. There was another name, though, too. I'm sure, there's a bunch of different cultures and whatnot, but someone called them this certain name, and it was the people that existed here before the moon. Because when the moon came, they said it created all kinds of cataclysms and, things got all messed up for a while.
I mean, the problem is we can't even corroborate what happened 200 years ago, let alone whether there's a tribe in Africa called the Dogon. I mean, I've got a book about the Dogon as well. I can't remember the guy's name who wrote it, but there's an awful lot of speculation in there, and I imagine it is alien invasion propaganda poking its nose out.
Oh, well, that's something that obviously is going to come forth at some point. I mean, that is a foregone conclusion. I mean, when Werner von Braun told Dr. Carol Rosin, about the final card being the alien invasion, and of course you can see we're being prepped for it everywhere in the media.
Everywhere.
Absolutely astounding. And in fact, I've been watching a lot of really interesting. It's like all of a sudden UFO footage is up, right? And guys, if you have not seen this stuff, I don't know how much of it is or isn't CGI, but a lot of it looks truly like just regular amateur type of footage. But you watch this stuff and these ships are spectacular.
I've not seen
whatever they are.
Seen it.
Oh my God.
Bob, would you be with me in saying that when you first heard about Bluebeam, you thought to yourself, no, don't be ridiculous. No one, let alone everyone, could believe the alien the alien invasion or the alien ancestry or all of this sort of stuff. But I've got to say that these days, after seeing people walking around with masks and I can see it really. If they dropped it today, I could see 90% of the population going for it, which I never thought was possible.
I totally agree. And I mean, and we're being told on multiple different levels, even like Stephen Greer is saying, oh no, they're not necessarily extraterrestrial so much as they might be demons of some sort, right? Or extraterrestrial in that they come from other parts of the earth or within the earth or things like that. So, I mean, really, it's kind of an all-encompassing type of thing. But, and I don't know exactly how far they've taken this holographic technology. I mean, obviously what we see commercially is pretty amazing, but when I first heard of Operation Bluebeam, believe it or not, John, I was studying the chemtrails because this is about 28, 29 years ago that the chemtrails first started appearing out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so when I was looking at those, it seemed like every university and their brother was doing these studies, and it turned out that aluminum and barium and strontium, all of these ingredients made for a perfect background medium to project holographic light shows on, right? Well, that's pretty interesting stuff, right? So then all of a sudden, here comes, Project Bluebeam, where they're talking about, eventually they're either going to have this alien invasion or that, when Jesus comes back or whatever religious figure, that they're going to use a combination of technologies of, large pictures in the sky combined with beaming technologies directly into your head, which, by the way, was patented.
It's already happened.
Yeah, 30 years ago. Old tech.
But they've used it in warfare in Africa.
Yes.
They've had
Desert
a bunch...
Storm, in the 90s.
That's right, and they projected a huge Jesus or Allah, depending on which side you were on. And here's a curveball for you. What if it's not? I mean, they're talking about an alien invasion, and we're all thinking little green men coming down in craft and War of the World sort of thing. What if the alien invasion is the virus?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So what would stop them coming out saying this beer bug is actually has been shown to have come from Mars?
Well,
and
I think
it's a biological weapon.
yeah, no, I think what would probably dismiss that in my mind is you can't really personify the virus. And to me, I mean, whether this alien invasion is going to come down, I mean, this could come in different forms, right? It could come that, we are the Syrians and we're from, the star Sirius system, blah, blah, blah. We are really your creators, right? Or, something like that. Or what's his name? What was his name that wrote about the Anunnaki? Anyway, Sitchin, yeah, Zechariah Sitchin, right? Talks about, the Anunnaki supposedly created mankind, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, any amount of alien race could theoretically claim that, right? And it even is backed up scripturally. It depends on how you read it. I will admit that firsthand. But, the first time I read Genesis 1:26, I got to tell you, I raised my eyebrows because it says, let us create man in our image, right? And you read that and it's like, ooh, whoa, what does that mean exactly? So, you could actually get people, coming from that angle and coming here and saying, okay, we were your progenitors. You guys got all this wrong. This is the way things really work. It could be that type of a deception, or it could be some sort of a all out attack, right? That they're just going to launch, like what they're kind of doing in Northern California, these laser, weaponry that's being used on the land. It is just surgically striking. It's leaving the foliage perfectly intact and taking the buildings down and burning them to a crisp, which is amazing, right?
Well, it's like you say, it could take so many forms. And we all saw most of this coming, the mandatory doodahs and the mask and all what we're seeing today. We all saw this coming, but none of us knew how they were going to bring it about. Now we've seen it. It makes perfect sense. I just wonder with alien invasion whether it could be a alien virus invasion.
Yeah, who knows? Could be. Do you have a take on it, Mitchell?
Why is it the craziest people always kind of get it right? The crazy conspiracy nuts. Like, how long ago did we say that this is all going to be about the vaccine, about the jab? Then look where we are now. I suppose it's all about how you think about things. Like, we're told that there's going to be a one world religion. We're sitting around waiting for all religions to be abolished and everyone to believe the same thing. That's the globe. It's been here since, like we were just discussing.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
Scientism.
Yeah, scientism. It's around us. We're living it. There's already one world religion. It doesn't matter what else you believe. We still have that one world religion.
They just hide it by calling it science.
Exactly.
It's just very well hidden. But in reality, it's just a belief, which is a religion.
Well, but I have numerous people with different religions, but they all believe Big Bang, evolution, dinosaurs, etc. So there's an overarching religion. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's the spider that controls the whole web. It's that are all the legs. Different religions are a leg, and they're all connected. They all believe in this one thing. So they got everybody that believes, is divided by religion, to all come together believing in this overarching religion that they don't even see.
It's hidden in plain sight. Yeah, it's hidden in plain sight. It's all about what you expect to happen. If we're told there's a one world religion coming, that everyone will believe the same thing, you expect to see a change. Just like if we get told there's an alien invasion expected, we're looking around looking for something that we're meant to be fighting. It's around us right now. It's the boogeyman. The virus is the boogeyman that's around us. You can't see it. We're getting told we're getting attacked from all angles, all over the earth.
Yeah,
Like
that's exactly what I think.
It's all about what you expect to see compared to what is actually happening.
Yeah, yeah, and yet we're the crazy ones for seeing it.
That's right. Like most other things, like we get cast out, we get censored, we get criticized for saying these things. But how many times have these turned out to be reality, just in a different way of looking at it?
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
And how long have they known this stuff? I mean, if Plato lived back when they say he lived, he wrote about this. My favorite quote by him is, "Those able to see beyond the shadows and lies of their culture will never be understood, let alone believed by the masses." So anybody that could see through all their lies was going to be considered a crazy person. And they knew this a long time ago.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, Zach. And it is amazing. And it makes me think back of all the times that, you see a TV show or something like that with some guy saying, "Oh, they're doing this," and, acting crazy about it, right? They're doing this. And he's absolutely emphatic about it. And even acting a little bit nutty, but, in retrospect, you think about it, what they were raving about was, something that actually had a lot of basis behind it. Right. And some people just react differently to it. And because it's so far out of most people's vision, when you have somebody that does see it and then reacts to it, especially in the presence of NPCs, right, they're going to look at him and they're going to lock him up in a funny farm. Right. But,
well, look at that Mel Gibson film, Conspiracy Theorist.
Right.
I just saw someone in chat saying, "You guys, conspiracy theorists." It's like, you're so brainwashed by what the CIA put out as a catchphrase to catch all of us. I mean, watch that film again and see how wrong he was on not a lot.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. All right. Okay. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and do a couple more of these news stories. I thought this one was funny because it's ridiculous. So we have this headline here that says, "A microwave-powered rocket. Drone project suggests it may be possible." Okay, guys, now, before you get all carried away here, I want to tell you that this technology, not only has it been around for quite some time, but most of you are using it on your cell phone. And that is the wireless charging, right? So what they're going to present here as if it's something new that NASA developed and it's brand new and it's really amazing and they can power rockets with it is nothing more than taking an RF radio frequency electromagnetic wave, passing it through a device that rectifies it, meaning it turns it from AC, alternating current, into direct current, and then taking that direct current, like a plus 5 volts or a plus 12 volts, and then powering something with it, right? So, and this is exactly what Tesla was thinking about, with like Wardenclyffe. And like I said, this is technology that's already in use. I'm sure there's been way better ways that they have actually brought this into existence. But this article, as we read it, we're going to find out, what they're talking about. And this is nothing new at all. But just like typical, NASA is, trying to befoozle us and make us think that this is some new technology that's going to be able to power a rocket. So let's read this really quick. So it says, researchers in Japan are using microwaves to power free-flying drones, a project that could possibly pave the way for a new type of rocket. Currently, most rockets generate thrust using controlled explosions of a solid or liquid fuel source, which can make up 90% of their total weight. However, new research published in the Journal of Spacecraft and Rockets, ay caramba, demonstrates the potential of using an alternative source of fuel, microwaves. Okay, so we go down here, and it says microwaves are a type of electromagnetic radiation. As such, they're jam-packed with energy that can be converted into electricity. Gee, we've only been talking about that for the last 5-6 years, right, Zach? Much as sunlight can be... Yeah, I know. Anyway, I'm sorry. Much as sunlight can be converted to power by solar panels, in a new study, researchers generated electricity to fuel free-flying drones by beaming microwaves directly at them, right? Again, just like your wireless charger works on your cell phone, same exact thing, okay? In drone experiments, microwave power is sent from the antenna on the ground to the antenna on the drone. A rectifier is used to convert RF radio frequency to DC, direct current, and the DC power is used to drive the drone's motors. We call it a rectenna. Oh, wow, isn't that clever? One of the new studies authors, Kohei Shimara of the University of Tsukuba, told Space.com in an email. Previous studies exploring microwave-powered propulsion used low-frequency waves, but found that when the frequency is raised, the power transmission efficiency also increases. Why is that? Because the wave is alternating back and forth at a higher speed, so you're going to have a larger envelope speed, and a larger envelope overall power, excuse me. So taking this into account, the research team used high frequencies, 28 gigahertz, to lift a 0.9 pound or 0.4 kilograms drone off the ground. Sitting directly above the source of the microwave beam, the transmitted power enables the drone to reach a height of around 2.6 feet for about 30 seconds. So here's the thing. The problem with this type of power transmission is it is extremely inefficient, right? It has a very, very limited range. Now, obviously, I don't know what Tesla was going to do exactly, but I think whatever Tesla had in mind with Wardenclyffe Tower was going to have a much higher efficiency or Q in power transfer than this silliness. Because this, like I said, this is nothing different than taking a little two-way radio and keying it up, transmitting it next to a fluorescent bulb. Have you ever done that? If you do, and you just key up a little walkie-talkie next to a fluorescent bulb, it's going to light up the bulb, right? Nothing special here, nothing unusual, nothing new, not by a million years. But again, because NASA is spending $65 million a day wasting our money, they've got to come out and make it seem like, oh, well, hey, they're really leading the way on this, technology. But when in fact, we're just going around in circles. And, I said this before, and I don't know how you feel about this, Mitchell, but I think you watched the Awaranon videos, right?
The what video, sorry?
The Awaranon videos. Remember that it was like a 5 and 6 hour series?
No, I don't think I did.
Are you serious? Oh my God. Okay. Well, I better send those over to you.
I'll have to play catch up. Yeah, I'm going to have to watch them.
Yeah, they're quite amazing. And he really opened up, a lot of possibilities as far as, what could be done. But, and of course, what we're finding out, even with Martin Liedtke's work, right? We're finding out that, our technology, our future technology seems to have already occurred in the past, right? It seems like not only did we already have free energy back then, but we also had electric cars. We had all kinds of flight vehicles that they were using for a variety of things, right? They were able to transmit this power wirelessly or through these like water aqueducts, right? All of this stuff that, some of the older researchers have brought up, it appears that we're already doing that, just like when you look at the architecture of certain church buildings, right? And how they are resonant. They have such an amazing acoustic sound to them, and how they are seemingly built to capture energy. And that's exactly what's going on with these things, is the architecture of the buildings themselves was actually the device for capturing and generating this free energy that would power our older civilizations. And of course, then they come out and they tell us, Mitchell, if you didn't think about it, if you look at some of the architecture that they've displayed in like the World's Fairs and some of the technologies, they will build things that clearly was built long before we ever had the technology to build stuff like that, right? And they said that, oh, well, it was only put there temporarily, and then they tore it down, because it was just there for the World's Fair, right? We see all kinds of stuff like that. But the reality is it appears that there were so many cities that were just built all over the world, and when they're built, they appear to be empty, and then they slowly become populated. And this was all covered very much in the Oranon series, and it's absolutely mind-boggling when you look at it that.
Oh yeah.
And anyone that's
absolutely
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, absolutely. All the history that has been not so mainstream, but there's obvious that we can see. Like, yeah, it's amazing, and I was going to go back to that subject of the rocket technology. Isn't it ironic that we're talking about this stuff with rocket technology, the only technology ever known to man that has gone backwards since it was developed back in 50, 60 years ago, and now we're talking about new rocket technology now? Isn't it ironic?
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, we've been lied to dramatically about it because rocket technology cannot, will not, never has, never will, cannot ever possibly work in a vacuum. It's just impossible, right? I've covered that a million times on this show. There have been tons of physicists, even rocket propulsion experts, that say there's no way this could possibly work in a vacuum, right? But without this means of propulsion, then NASA has no story about how they are allegedly sending vehicles all over the galaxy or the solar system or anything like that, right? And they also have never come up in all that time with anything better than, blowing stuff up or combustion for propulsion. It's like, isn't that interesting? And
yeah, so yeah, it is very interesting. Is that where this article could be going to? It's kind of legitimizing space travel in something other than rocket propulsion, like the explosive technology.
Well, possibly, but
they talked about ion propulsion for over like 2 decades. That
right.
was their new type of propulsion, and that, like everything else, never really came into fruition.
It doesn't work with a crap.
No.
Point blank, it just doesn't. It was a visible favorite.
That they don't comprehend how it works.
Yeah,
the ions just kind of appear there from nothing.
Sounds good though, so it's got to be scientific-y, right?
Well, yeah. Use big words, make it hard to understand, and people throw money at you.
Yep. But no, a lot of the universities that have actually studied it and tried to make it, I mean, the amount of propulsion that is net generated is almost nil. And here's the problem, and Zack, I know you're going to relate to this, is that it has to be done in order for this ionic propulsion to work. You have to charge something. You have to give a charge potential to something. But if you are in a vacuum, then there's nothing to give a charge potential to be able to...
Yeah, it's not going to go anywhere.
It ain't going to go anywhere. That's exactly right.
Around you. Yeah, like an airplane up in the air, the electricity that it gathers has nowhere to go. That's why you see them discharging the airplane when it touches down a lot of the time, just to make sure that it isn't so statically charged that it's going to kill somebody that, goes up and touches it.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing. You need an electric field for that to happen. You need to have that to get rid of all. Yeah, it's just so stupid.
It really is. And this, of course, is another reason why, they had to manufacture this fictitious version of gravity, right? And this is something that we're going to be talking about on Mitchell's show on Friday, guys, which will be kind of interesting. But we're going to be talking about, how gravity, was kind of basically co-opted, and that, when you look at it, first of all, gravity means nothing other than weight, essentially. And weight, of course, is defined as a force. But the way that they say that this gravitational force actually happens is mass attracting mass. And while there may be a technical argument that could be made from that, there's no actual data that proves that to be true. But where we do get these type of forces, where else, is from electricity. And that's something that we're going to be talking about on Friday. And I think that'll be a lot of fun to talk about with Mitchell and his show. But I don't want to go too far into that. But that's the thing is, this may be trying to go there and say that they're going to make electricity some sort of power. But again, it requires being able to charge something. You cannot put a static charge into nothing. In other words, if there's no atmosphere or any type of molecular construct of any kind whatsoever, then you cannot apply a charge potential to it. It's as simple as that. Therefore,
they've been trying to do this for a long time, like trying to recreate an ionosphere, sending these charges through a vacuum. It doesn't happen. It just, the static charge just gathers around the object and builds up.
That's right. And it's not going to go anywhere until as a medium, just like anything else, there has to be a medium for things to travel through. So you have to have some sort of a physical medium for electrostatic charge to propagate through, just like electromagnetic and magnetic waves, that type of EM waves, RF waves, anything like that requires the luminiferous ether to propagate through.
So Bob, do you think that this sort of propulsion could work in our atmosphere?
I do. In fact, I know we've covered this, and we've talked about there are nature's creatures like the
ballooning spiders.
Yeah, the spider ballooning, the bumblebees. The spider ballooning is one of the most amazing things out there, of course. And then NASA comes out and straight up tells you that on some of these actual balloons and also on so-called satellites, that they're releasing these really long tethers. Now the problem is it won't work in outer space because you cannot build up a charge potential for the spacecraft to propagate against, right?
Well, outer space doesn't exist, so we know that.
Well, exactly. Work, but the problem with that is primarily because there is no atmosphere. There's no molecular content out there to be able to charge, to cause a difference of potential, to be able to even manufacture any type of propulsion, right? That's the problem with it. So, but yeah, as far as in the atmosphere, you better believe it. And it is, in fact, like I said, nature does it. Bees do it. Scarab beetles do it. Spiders do it with ballooning techniques. And
so
NASA.
This is something DIYers could do. Flat Earth DIYers could experiment with, say, a small sort of styrofoam craft with a long strand on it that's electrically charged.
They have DIY kits that you can go get right now where you just add this charge to it's a triangle. It looks like toothpicks with tinfoil wrapped around it in a triangle, and you give it this static charge and it just hovers up over the ground. And you get it at the right frequency and it'll stay like right above the ground perfectly. If you don't get it, it'll move all over the place and crash. But you can even lock it in if you have the right equipment.
Yep.
So they're basically giving away their secrets, but they're giving, well, they're not secrets.
Well, they're trying to tell you
Tesla,
that,
aren't they?
Yeah, they're trying to tell you that it cannot happen through electricity. And it's like, au contraire, that's the only way it can happen.
Yeah. And they're trying to persuade you that it's happening in a negative Tor vacuum.
Exactly.
When in reality, it just works in reality.
Yeah. It requires, again, there has to be stuff in the air. There has to be air. There has to be stuff, molecules of whatever, gas, whatever, particulates. Then you can apply a charge to this. And then we can do all kinds of amazing things. You can put gas in those charges, and you can make plasma fields, and you can do all kinds of amazing things with that, because plasma fields will then begat other magnetic fields. And it's just, it's absolutely amazing what can be done with electricity and gas. And in fact, this is largely, well, this is entirely, not largely, it's entirely what's happening and going on with our upper atmosphere. And, you know, the Globers, again, they try and tell you that gravity is the thing that is holding in all of our atmosphere, right? It's like, no, we are actually contained, and that container is the firmament. There must be a firmament up there. There must be a container. There is tons of evidence for it. And, you know, eventually these people are not going to be able to deny this anymore, even though they will. But then they'll have to deny it till the day they die, really, because it's a lie and it simply doesn't work.
The laws of nature dictate that we have to be contained in order to have a pressure. Yeah, it's very simple, and it shows you how strong the programming can be, and people just can't get around this one. Yeah, I love Mitchell's "We See Too Far." That's my favorite one to go to wake up new people. But yeah, when you start getting into sciencey stuff, it really takes people that want to learn it to learn it. You can't teach somebody something that's just kind of interested. I've learned, especially about physics when it comes to electricity, even though a lot of it's very basic, once you learn the language, you learn, I think Ken Wheeler says it the best. It's all just pressure mediation. It's positive going towards a negative in all aspects.
You can't just want to know it or learn it either. You have to accept that everything you've been taught to date could be wrong. And
well, yeah, when you do a test and you get the answer wrong from what they tell you it's going to be in the textbook, and you do the test 100 times and the answer's always wrong, you have to come to the conclusion that the textbook is wrong, not you. You have to.
I like this in the chat. The Fisher from Eden says the key to life is figuring out why you're inside of a container. Yeah, I got to agree with that, because it's like, why are we here? Why are we inside of this little container? And, Mark Sargent, I thought, really did an excellent job in the clues when he kind of questioned that, because, animals in the wild, well, they may realize that they're in a cage, but they'll make do and they won't worry about it too much. And if you make the cage big enough, they'll never know any different from that or being in the wild. But humans are different. We're different kind of animals. And as soon as we see something that's there, like a barrier that we can't get beyond, then we have to start asking, why is it there? Who put it there? What are we doing inside of it? What is the purpose of this, right? So, I mean, Mark had this figured out a long time ago.
Well, that's where they bring in legislation, which says you can't go there because you're breaking the law. So we can't get to the edge of the fence to see that there's even a fence there, to wonder what's beyond the fence. So, we need to grow up here.
Again, it goes back to like biblical times and the story of Nimrod, in the Tower of Babel. Supposedly, they got to the edge and found a wall that they couldn't get through. So that's when they decided to go back and build a tower from the center and go up and try to, see if they could get through that way. This is, mythology, of course.
Yeah.
What people like to call
is it mythology?
Yeah, is it? Yeah. That's why they shut off Antarctica, because they knew how people are.
Well, it was certainly pre-Antarctic Treaty, that's for sure. So now we've got a little bit of paper that says we're not actually allowed to go beyond the 60th without fuel, and you got crap in a bag, and you can't bring dogs, and you're not allowed to.
Yeah, they make it impossible.
Totally.
Yep. So anyway, it
just goes back to the fundamental principles of what we experience. That we have natural laws, and they're natural laws because they happen always and they never not happen. So the antecedent to having gas pressure in the first instance, you need a container. You will never find a container without gas pressure, and you will never find gas pressure not contained. And so that they're just the fundamental principles of where we live. I try to use my reality around me. I try to use observations. I don't have to go into imagination land. Everything that we see points to the basis of us just being in a container. That's just one of the fundamental principles of our world.
It's true. And you know what's funny, Mitchell, is flat earthers have no problem with saying that, a lot of them, but they don't want to go, when it comes to, well, where is this container? A lot of them don't want to go there. Now me, I've gone there on multiple occasions. I've done 3, 4, 5 shows on the existence of the firmament and how much proof there is for it. And there is a lot. My God, there's a lot. And I just don't understand why people are so hesitant to take that, to the next level.
But that's it, Bob. That's the whole point, is that there seems to be a correlation between, if you talk about a firmament, then you are a religious nutter. There is a correlation between those two. I'm more than happy to talk about a firmament, because I'm more than happy if people call me a religious nutter. I'm absolutely not a religious nutter in any way, shape or form, but I can see that it is a no-brainer that there is a firmament, and that doesn't in turn make me what they call, quotations, a religious nutter.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, it's getting harder to find this. Here it is. Okay. Phys.org, IFL Science. There we go. Colorado. Yeah. And of course, I love going back to this thing, because this article by CU, which was backed up by MIT, of all places, right? And what it says in here, it is telling you absolutely that there is something there that is, like a glass running into a glass wall in space, right? Now, granted, they're saying that it's 7,200 miles up, and I don't believe that, but who knows? Maybe it is. Maybe they're, I don't know what technology they're using to try and measure this, but, same thing with the Van Allen radiation belts. Maybe the scaling is just wrong, but this thing is amazing, and I love the fact that they use the Star Trek-like invisible shield found thousands of miles above Earth. Well, there it is. There it is from MIT, the United States' premier engineering college, and CU, University of Colorado in Boulder, did this study, and it was picked up all over the place, and nobody seems to disagree with this, right? They talk about the latest mystery revolves around an extremely sharp boundary at the inner edge of the outer belt at roughly 7,200 miles and an altitude appears that block the ultra-fast electrons from breaching the shield and moving deeper towards Earth's atmosphere. These are the very things that supposedly keep us from the lethal radiation from annihilating us, right? And then they say something like, it's almost as if we are like they're running into a glass shield out there. You read this article, it's absolutely fascinating. Have you ever seen this, Mitchell, before?
Specifically, no, not that. No, the invisible shield, no.
Oh, dude, you got to see this. Let me put this in the internal chat. This is an article that is a must read. This is one of the go-tos, I think, for any flat earther, that, when they're trying to say, oh, well, give me some sort of a mainstream, because how Globers are, they won't take anything unless it's mainstream. And even if it's mainstream, if it agrees with your point of view as a flat earther, well, then they have to just turn into flat earth denier mode and deny anything, like, the wall in front of their face. So, but this is absolutely astounding. You got to read this. It'll blow your mind. And this came out, absolutely. 5 years ago? Awesome. Yeah, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. November 26, 2014.
Catch up on a few things here.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on that. They're what we call anti-flat earthers. I had a debate with Fight the Flat Earth Craig, and he literally said to me, hold up your hand in front of your face. Is that the hand that you're seeing? And I said, yeah, correct. And he said, no, that's not your hand. It's refracted. You're not actually seeing your hand. They're the kind of things that these anti-flat earthers have to come up with just to explain their reality.
I know. I saw that and I was blown away. It's like, no, that's not your hand. It's like, what? I mean, my God. I mean, talk about denying the stupid look on your face, Craig. You know, that guy is just dumber than a box of rocks. Oh my God.
That is just a perfect example of an anti-flat earther. He just has to make up arguments to go against what we're saying, because that's what the black swan does to people. They see the black swan, they don't have a physical curvature anymore. They now have to say that everything's refracted because it's in the atmosphere. So your hand's now refracted. You're not actually seeing the hand in front of your face. Literal reality deniers.
Yeah, exactly. Then of course my other big proof that I love is sprites and elves, right? You've seen these, right? Blue Jets, sprites and elves. So if we look at this,
Yeah,
and
cool.
we've seen these, and they discharge up and they run into something right at 62 miles. Well, that's amazing, because you know the other thing that they do at 62 miles, Mitchell, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but have you heard about how they are able to make artificial stars? And they create these for the purpose explicitly of being able to have a noise floor reference for like atmospheric distortions that they can then modulate onto the telescope's mirror to take away the distortion from atmospheric type of distortion. So are you familiar with those? Have you ever seen those? The, God, what are they called? Reference stars? I forgot what they're called. Let me find it really quick.
I think I know what you're talking about. I have seen the basic concept of it, but how they do it, no, I'm not familiar with exactly how they do it.
C-I-A-L star.
It's just stuff like this about how we can introduce things.
I'm sorry?
I remember back in 2015, starale.com. And it was, they said that they could give you a full moon up in the night sky for like if you're going to propose and it's, you know, a new moon. You could have your fiance see a full moon at the exact time, blah, 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 in your area from where you're looking. Things like that. They could print your name in stars, they said.
Yeah.
And then the site went totally off and just talked about stars after about 6 months.
And so this is the technology here, Mitchell. It's called a laser guide star. And I don't know why I always forget that. But here's the cool thing about how these laser guide stars work. Okay, so first of all, it says a laser guide star is an artificial star image created for use in astronomical adaptive optics systems, which are employed in large telescopes in order to correct atmospheric distortion of light, called astronomical seeing. Wow, that's a really innovative title, isn't it? Anyway, adaptive optics systems require a wavefront reference source of light called a guide star. Okay, and a guide star is a reference star used to accurately maintain the tracking by a telescope of a heavenly body. Okay, so when they can't get a good enough star out there, then they just create their own. Now, here comes the good part. So anyway, natural stars can serve as a point sources for this purpose, but sufficiently bright stars are not available in all parts of the sky, which greatly limits the usefulness of natural guide star adaptive optics. Instead, one can create an artificial guide star by shining a laser, and by the way, these lasers are like 45-watt lasers, and into the atmosphere. Light from the beam is reflected by components in the upper atmosphere back to the telescope. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what it's hitting. So what's happening here is this laser beam is hitting what's called the sodium layer. Okay, and the sodium layer just happens to be a layer of sodium, right? And guess where it is? At 62 miles up, right? That's what they're telling us it is. And that when you hit that sodium layer with a 450 nanometer, or I think it's slightly in the yellow spectrum. I don't think that's quite the right nanometer. But when you hit it with that, it will excite this sodium layer and create this artificial star, right? Now, and this is exactly what Zack was talking about. So what they can do is they can literally take a laser and modulate it onto this 62-mile star and draw pictures on it like an Etch-a-Sketch. Quite literally. But the fact that it is at 62 miles, which is exactly where, space supposedly begins. It's where I believe the bottom lower limit of the firmament is. It is where it's where everything's happening, man. I'm telling you, it's where signals bounce. There's something physically there, because why in the world would there be a layer of sodium so precisely at 62 miles up? Now, that also tells me that, and I haven't found anything to contradict this, but that also tells me that the dome over the top of us is probably not so much as a dome as it is a flat construct, just like the stars behind it appear to be, right? And it is flat across it. It's flat across a 62 mile or thereabouts type of area. Now, there is no limitation as to where they can do this from. In other words, they don't say, well, you can do it from Australia, but you can't do it from Colorado, but you can't do it from Greenland, type of stuff. It appears to be wherever they want to do this, right? And it's like, you have to ask yourself, first of all, what in the hell is a sodium layer doing sitting there at 62 miles up in the atmosphere, right? Well, that in and of itself is preposterous and ridiculous. There's no reason for that to be going on there. Why isn't it dispersing? Why do we have something so visceral, right? That is there that we can fire it up like a lightning bug, right? Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. Not to me. So again, this is just another one of those pieces of evidence, along with so many others, and on like what they're showing here, the sprites and elves and whatever it is that's at 62 miles. And then you've got this Star Trek invisible shield. And then we've got air pressure. We've got so much stuff that happens at 100 kilometers or 62 miles that, people cannot deny this. And that's why I love to slap people over the head with, and they don't even address this, to be honest with you, Mitchell. It's unbelievable. They're afraid of it.
The whole 62 mile thing keeps coming up. Like, we know that we can measure a flat Earth down here. So there's just more evidence to suggest that if these things keep coming up at 62 miles, that we have some sort of a barrier, a container, at the very least, layers of something at 62 miles, and that has to be absolutely flat.
Agreed. I absolutely agree. The conclusion is inescapable. How could you not conclude that, right? There is so much evidence there, and the evidence is spectacular. And this is, of course, you don't hear much about stuff like this by these laser guide stars. It's not something that they put out there for the general populace to see, because otherwise they'd be going, wait a minute, why is there a layer of sodium at 62 miles? Why do all these things happen at 62 miles? What's up there at 62 miles? They don't want people asking that question.
Can you imagine the applications of this? Forget the people proposing. Imagine like protesters getting a hold of this technology and putting messages in the sky. How awesome that would be.
It would be incredible. And there are commercial companies that will do it.
That's the protest of the future.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what Zack was talking about, about being able to draw these pictures or whatever you want to do in the sky, right? Because there's obviously a great big old huge Etch-a-Sketch up there that we can literally fluoresce. Now,
yeah,
it makes me wonder, honestly. I start thinking about things like, well, how do they make the little image of the ISS zip across the sun and the moon, right? Well, gee, I wonder if they're not just doing the same type of technique. They're because when you look at the clarity of the ISS when it makes a solar or a lunar transit, the outline is so razor sharp. I mean, there's absolutely no distortion whatsoever, right? It's just there, man. It is there and plain to see. And it looks like a little bitty TIE fighter. But it's there nevertheless, and it's very clear and it's unmistakable. Of course, they want you to believe that it's the ISS. But it can't be the ISS because, well, we've gone into that a million times also. But yeah, so I think, Mitchell, you're probably going to like being on Globebusters because we talk about all these stuff. We go really deep into this, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, this is stuff. Yeah. I just haven't looked into yet. I haven't surrounded myself with it, so that this is awesome exposure. It's so cool. Another thing with the ISS is it's another one of those globe proofs in inverted commas that the Globers like to bring up. Why can we see the ISS? It doesn't matter why we can see it. Yeah, we see it. We're not denying that we see something.
We see
in
something.
the sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see something, but whether, like you said, you've done so many shows of it. Just the notion of orbits, we need to have a spherical surface for something to orbit around. There is, other than those things in the sky that we are told is orbiting, things that we can never get to, never experience, never touch, feel, taste, or any of that. There is nothing that orbits anything. There's so many things about the ISS that we can disprove it. But yeah, this is one of those things that, yeah, it's absolutely plausible why it is there, why we can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have not seen this, Mitchell, you may want to watch this. So let me go to this. If I go here and I go to our videos on Rokfin, actually, I think, where is it? Huh? Oh, God, what am I doing? Picked the wrong day to start smoking crack. How about if I actually go to Rokfin instead of... all right.
And I'm really looking forward to the conversation on Friday, because this is stuff that that my audience, for one, needs to be exposed to, because the things that I talk about are kind of just the things that I can physically just see around me. These sorts of things, the concepts that you're bringing up are totally out of
Mitchell,
my conversation.
Can you tell us what's happening on Friday and where we can see it?
Absolutely. So I run daily live streams from my channel, Mitchell from Australia, on YouTube. So if you want to see those daily live streams, I go out in the world. I just view my natural world around me, go to the beaches, mountains, waterfalls, and I just talk about my reality around me, which presents itself as flat. I go through flat earth proofs. I go through globe debunking. And every Friday, I'm going to have a special guest. And this Friday, it will be Bob here from Globebusters, and Zack, I think you're going to join us too, and Austin, which it gets it, and we're going to be discussing the electrostatic downward vector or acceleration, and that's a conversation that is going to be fascinating. For one, it totally excludes any notion of a globe. We do not have to go into the globe whatsoever. This is purely a flat Earth discussion, and these are the discussions that we need to have to nut out where it is that we live and how things work where we live, because it's not a discussion that has been had on both sides as far as I can tell. There are two distinct sides to do with what the globe believers call gravity, and on one side we've got this discussion of the electrostatic downward vector, and on the other side we've got the relative density disequilibrium, and put these two together, it's going to be fascinating.
Sorry, mate. Can you spell Mitchell from Australia, your YouTube channel? Because
here, I'll drop in the chat.
I'm getting nothing.
I'll drop it in the chat. Here, it's right here, John. So we'll go copy, and here it goes in our internal chat. And mods, if you would do the same, also a couple times in the DLive and Rokfin and YouTube chats. There is his, and it will also be in the show note. Well, it's already in the show notes, actually, guys. So there you have it. I already added. It's the first time I'm actually up to date, and you're in there too, John. Finally. So yay. I'm finally up to speed on this thing. So yeah. So yeah, this is something that I think you would be interested in. Is this presentation where I did it in Dallas, and I absolutely annihilated the ISS, and I went through all the angular sizes. I went through the stars and the planets, and one of the things that I think is the biggest killer for the heliocentric model is that we are told that the sun has a diameter of 865,000 miles across. Okay. And in that 865,000 miles across, right, it's unimaginably big. But we also are told that the sun is 93 million miles away, which is a distance, if you want to put it in terms of light years, it's 8 light minutes away. So in other words, it takes 8 minutes for the light from the sun to get here. But because of the inverse square law, and also inverse properties, you have two things at play here, right? You have the inverse square law, which works at the square of the distance in the reduction of the light. And you also have the inverse law, which works at the simple inverse of the distance. In other words, if you double the distance, your angular resolution goes to half. If you cut the distance in half, then your angular resolution doubles, right? So that's the way that works. And so what I did is I took this and I broke it down, and I showed that basically 93 million miles, 8 light minutes on this right here that we're looking at, that when it gets to our sky, that it's 0.52 degrees in angular size, right? And then I said, okay, so what if we doubled that distance and went to 16 light minutes, and then it's cut in half to 0.26 degrees angular size. Did it again to 32 light minutes. Then I went to a light hour. Okay. Then I kept going. Now, one thing I want to make note here is that when you get down to 0.02 degrees, which is 1 arc minute, your angular resolution and your visual acuity limit have hit their limit. You cannot see anything smaller. You cannot resolve any differences in anything smaller than those sizes. And these occur at somewhere between 2 and 4 light hours away, right? So if the sun, before you even get out to Pluto, right, the sun is too small to see on an angular distance. And remember, the brightness is being decreased at a factor of 4, right? Not just double, but a factor of 4, because it squares every time you go out there. That's the inverse square law. So carrying that logic forward, if you go a mere 16 light hours, and then I also showed the sun's brightness and stuff, how bright it is, by the time you get to a distance of Pluto, right, which isn't even a light day away, not even, it's like a light half a day away, right, 12 light hours, the sun doesn't look anything other than any other star in the sky. So if our sun, which is supposedly an average star, right, average size star, starts out at 865,000 miles in diameter, and in less than 1/2 of a light day is too small to see on an angular resolution level, and the brightness is not far behind that, then how in the hell are we seeing things like our closest star of Proxima Centauri at 4.3 light years away, or 450 light years away for Polaris, right? How are we seeing these ridiculous distances? The point is
real good engineering.
Real good engineering. It's BS is what it is. And I cover this in depth in this. So you may want to watch this, Mitchell, because it'll blow your mind.
I think I did see that presentation. That was awesome, Bob. It's just these things that even within their globe model, it doesn't work, let alone just because every single globe proof first starts with the notion that you are already on a globe. No one's going out there and starting from scratch and proving that we're on a globe. It's things like this, the fundamental principles of how our world works, how light works from a distance. It's just not possible. It does not work that way. You have to go into imagination land.
Yeah, exactly. That is exactly right. So anyway, that's what I did. And I'll put this in the show note for anybody else that wants to see this. But, all it takes is less than 1 light day. We're not talking about a light week. We're not talking about a light month or a light year. Our closest star is 4.5 light years away, which is multitudes of orders of magnitude out of our visual acuity and out of our brightness to be able to see anything. And then if you think about that, to take it even a step further, Mitchell, think about this for a second. How is it then that it's going and it's getting to like Jupiter or Saturn, which is like 1 billion miles away, right? And, it's hitting them at a brightness and a size of like 1/10 of what it would be here on Earth. And yet somehow those planets are able to reflect their light from the sun all the way back to Earth, where we can see it perfectly in the night sky. Again, it's a non sequitur. It doesn't make any sense. And I break all this stuff down in here. So yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Good, great stuff. Awesome stuff. And it all starts with the basis, like I said before, that we're already I want to just go into for a second how we get those distances in the first place. So to begin with, you need to assume that you are on a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles. That is the first thing you have to assume. And then you look at the sky, you see Venus. This is exactly how they got the distance to the sun, the size of the sun. They look at Venus, they say Venus is exactly the same size as Earth. So with a radius of 3959 miles, it's a sphere in the sky. And then they observed Venus transiting the sun. They timed, because they presupposed the size of Venus and it being a physical thing, they timed the transit of the sun. And because they knew or assumed the size of Venus, they then assumed the distance and the size of the sun. And that's the basis for measuring everything else in the world around us, in the universe around us. They say these other stars, these other planets, these other things are all based off this one assumption that we are on a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, which the Black Swan absolutely demolishes. The radius is needed for everything in the heliocentric model, and that's why it's so devastating to their model in every single aspect.
It's incredible when you actually do the research and backwards engineer where they got these figures from, but you're absolutely right. And that was just incredible to me that they just guessed that Venus was the same size as Earth and then based and extrapolated the entire universe based on that. But it's absolutely true. That's exactly how they did it.
Just one simple assumption led to all these farcical things. And then, yeah, as you said, they had to reverse engineer everything back to what we're seeing here, what Bob just went through. He just debunked the notion of any of those things being any of those distances and sizes.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that most ballers don't know this. They think that there is actually some legitimate way that they somehow measured the size of something that they never measured the distance to.
What crazy. They do, John, is they just deflect. You want to know what the biggest rebuttal I got back on that presentation was? It wasn't the fact that, wow, this is amazing. That's right. You couldn't possibly see this. What they said was, okay, smarty pants, so what are we seeing up there? And the answer to that is, in my opinion, what we're seeing is a modified U-2 that is flying around at about 60,000 feet that has ultra bright LEDs strapped onto the fuselage and the wings and the empennage that make it take on an appearance a little bit like the ISS, right? Or it could be holography that's being set up on the so-called sodium layer, which is really the firmament, right? It could be that also. I mean, they've given away their hand. We already know they can do this. The tech is out there. There are companies offering these services, like Zack said, and if they cannot wrap their head around that as a possibility, well, they're just in utter denial. Simple as that.
And back to Venus for just a second. Go and look up who discovered the size of Venus. They make it impossible to find. Now, Josh knows the guy's name. It's an old astronomer. I forget his name. But if you go and try and look up, who discovered, they'll tell you that Galileo was the first person to view upon Venus through a telescope and this and that. And NASA found was the first to discover gaseous blah, blah, blah. There is no, this person figured out the size this way.
Yeah, it just diverts right away to who discovered Venus.
Mm-hmm.
Was it not something to do with Kepler and the mentor that he killed? Murdered?
It might have. I don't know. I know the person is attached to one of the more famous astronomers, but his name isn't
Huygens had something to do with it.
I think that
Christian Huygens. I think. Yeah, I think he had something to do with it. But you're right. It is so hard to find this information. You really have to go step by step, and it's really compartmentalized. You have to put it together yourself. And as you guys said before, the Globers don't even know this. They don't even know their own model. We know their model better than them, and that's why we're flat earthers. That's why we can take it apart piece by piece, because we know how it's made up. And it sounds farcical when we put it in these.
I was going to say, I think the fact that we've actually questioned the model and put it under the lens of scrutiny and just really being honest with ourselves, with the truth as our goal. That's a big difference, because historically, myself included, nobody's really ever done that. They've just went along with the textbook and agreed with it. So there's a big difference there between reading, regurgitating, and actually thinking about what we're reading, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's, again, like I said, as far as the trolls out there, we're never going to reach them. It's not their job for us to reach them. It's their job to try and discredit us in any way possible. And so, fine. They will do their job, and we will just rely on the onlooking audience to either be honest with themselves or not, and look at this evidence that we produce and evaluate it fairly or not, right? Because, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it if I don't convince you. But it makes my day when somebody comes up to me and says, wow, what you said there, absolutely put me over the edge and made it, there's no doubt about it. It's flat. It's not moving. You're right. We've been lied to on a scale that's epic beyond belief. And that's just one more chip away at the larger system of deception that is going on in this place that we call Earth. And that's kind of what we're all after here, right? We want the truth to come out. We do. No matter how bad or horrific it may be, I think we're better off knowing the truth.
It can't get much worse, Bob, to be fair.
Yeah, I know. It seems that way, doesn't it?
Don't even go there. Don't say it.
Yeah, don't jinx us. Don't jinx us.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, guys, I'm sorry. I've got to run. I've got some personal stuff to.
Oh, no problem. I was getting ready to close down the show anyway, because we are at our 3 hours. So
well, I'm just going to say goodbye. I really appreciate being here. I really appreciate everyone in the audience, all the chat members, all the panel members. Great to meet you all. It's been real good fun. Looking forward to do this every week. Thank you, guys.
Great to meet you, Mitchell.
Good stuff, Mitchell.
All right,
I've got to run too. I've got a problem with my rec tenor. Might need some cream. So I'll catch up with you next week. Great show. Thanks a lot. Speak to you soon.
Okay, John. Take care of that rec tenor, buddy.
See you, mate.
Later.
All right.
See you, Bob.
See you, Mitchell. Take care. All right, cool. All right, guys. Well, wow, that really went by fast today. And I know we were all over the place, but, like I said, that's kind of the way I roll. I go where the conversation goes, and I think I like it that way. It's fun. And I realize that a lot of this stuff is repetitive for a lot of you people. But again, we also have a lot of people that are brand new that, really need to understand the bottom floor of this stuff. And that's why we try and go in all different places on this. So I apologize if I'm not satisfying everybody, but I also realize that there's no way I'm ever going to do that. So I'll just do the best I can do with it. So there you have it.
Unless you're dark chocolate. If you're dark chocolate, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Right on. Okay, so I guess, John, go ahead and tell us anything you got coming up this week, sir. And go from there. I understand you made a new video.
Yeah, I put a new video out. Was it yesterday or maybe the day before? I don't know. Within the last 24 hours. A new flat Earth video. So check that out on the Morgile channel. I also just put some guitar stuff on there too. So for those couple of you guys that are interested in guitar, well then check that out too. And other than that, I've got some other content that I'm working on that should be out hopefully pretty shortly. And just check that out from time to time, because I am still posting content on the Morgile channel on YouTube. So there you have it.
All right. Sounds good, sir. All righty. And Zach, I guess that brings us to you. What do you got coming up, sir?
Friday, the crew over there at Iron Rail Media will be taking a break. Well-deserved break. It's been a little while since we took a week off. Josh has some stuff going on camping-wise. So, Mitchell from Australia. We'll be doing the show with him Friday. And besides that, I'll be open. I was thinking about maybe doing some live research. Just the thought of video editing. I don't know if I have another, like my other video I did with electrostatics. I wanted to kind of do that with electrostatics and gases, but oh man, I just don't
It's a lot of work,
video
man.
editing. Yeah, so I was thinking about, doing the research that I do just live and let people go along for the ride while I'm looking through this stuff. And because I already know how it works, but gathering the content for the video and writing it and stuff like that, you kind of go back through all that stuff and get a good refresher course. So I don't know. Yeah, we'll see if people like that. But yeah, I just don't want to take the weeks and weeks and weeks of writing another video like that when I could just do it live and be done with it.
Yeah, and I totally understand it. Jeran kind of came to the same conclusion. It's so much easier to do it live, and you don't have to mess with, the rendering and the hours and the labeling, and it's crazy. Of course, I've never done it. It's all I can do to put together a PowerPoint presentation. So I hear you, buddy. Believe me.
Yeah, it's literally like 40 hours for 10 minutes when you do it, right, and really get into it. Like I've done on a few videos. And man, it's just, I don't know. I just don't have that drive in me right now. You go through stages. So yeah, it'll come back. But right now, it's just not there. The whole video editing, I look at it and it's like,
Yeah,
so.
I hear you. Oh, that's cool. All righty, sir. Well, let's go ahead and call it a show then. And thanks everybody for joining us. The only thing I want to say is we do have the Flattoberfest coming up in October. So if you have not gotten your tickets for that yet, you might want to get over to flatearthfestivals.com and buy those tickets from Karen B. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I don't even know what I did with the advert for it. Well, whatever. I'll play it next time. So, yep, that's all I have. And we will see you guys on Sunday. Well, actually, I guess Friday will be coming up on Mitchell's show. And I haven't talked to Austin yet. But we're going to try and get Austin on with us. And we're going to discuss this crazy thing that we believe fits the downward acceleration that we observe in things so much better than this nonsense called gravity. Even though they have a lot of similarities, there are some things that are just preposterous about this gravitational model that I think need to be dispelled, and we need to start calling it what it is and what it does. And I think there's a lot of proof for it. And again, trolls not interested in convincing you, don't care. Either listen and learn or don't. And, that's the way we're going to see it. So that's going to be it for us.
Real quick, Bob. Somebody in chat was asking if this will be saved for later viewing.
Yes.
I don't know if you save them on YouTube, but on Rokfin for sure, this will be up as a free one, right?
Yeah, it is. It is free on Rokfin. It is also on DLive, but DLive will only keep it for a few days. But YouTube, assuming they don't take it down, which I don't see any reason why they would, it will remain up. So there you have it. It's only the Sunday shows when we, cut over to Rokfin exclusively. And I didn't know if I was going to do that today or not. So I did put in the show notes that if we did, where to find us. But I don't think we said anything wrong today or that could be construed against YouTube's censorship rules. So hopefully it shall remain up. All right, cool.
We will find that out sooner or later.
Yes, we will. All right, guys. So we'll see you on Sunday. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace, y'all.